Bear with us, folks. We need a few more minutes. We'll be on the air in a couple of minutes. Good morning. Sorry for the late start, folks. Technical difficulties. It's just one of the bugs we're working out with some of the changes we made this week. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Wednesday, January 15th, 2020. It's 41 degrees across Westchester, actually across the Sound Shore. It's going to get up to 50 today and mostly sunny skies. The wind will be out of the west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour, but we like getting up to 50 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. We'll be back with a full weather report in just a moment. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is the morning show, obviously. This is Radio Westchester, the train station's radio station, or shall we say the radio station at the train station. You can listen live on RadioWestchester.com. You can go to MyTuner Radio, that app, and then download either Mornings with Bob Marrone or RadioWestchester.com, and you can tell Alexa to put us on in the morning. In any case, we're also on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope, and God knows what else. Actually, we're on iTunes now, and I know I missed one. Facebook, yes. Welcome to the program. Let's take a look at the headlines, and the headlines are something to see today. Hispanic community in Haverstraw steps up to help the Puerto Rican recovery effort. Meanwhile, the president is still withholding $8 billion for that island. Quite frankly, I think it's because he's trying to hold on to some votes that would be upset if he helped brown people. Putnam DA pushes for a moratorium on the discovery law. Meanwhile, Cortland officials discuss a major project that could transform the underdeveloped portion of their town. In Yonkers, a man is convicted of murder in a vehicular death of a teen girl. And newspapers, media groups back the Journal News' legal battle with the Thruway Authority, and we'll tell you all about it. Former MSNBC commentator Mimi Rocha hits $325,000 in the DA campaign. We've already reached out to her opponent. We will get him on soon, and then we will have her on. But still, in all honesty, it troubles me that another media star wants to be a DA. Remember how the last one turned out. All righty, in sports, the big story, the Red Sox manager Alex Cora has been fired. There's only one big name left. This is Radio Westchester. Let's go to the weather now. Remember, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It is 41. It's going to get up to 50 today. Mostly sunny skies. What a nice day ahead. But tonight, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature will be 38. The wind out of the west at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tomorrow, windy with a mix of sun and clouds, temperature 46, still nice. The wind out of the northwest at almost 40 miles an hour because things will be changing. Friday, lots of sunshine and breezy, the high down to 29 degrees. The overnight low will be 16. Saturday, cloudy with snow. Late in the day, the high will be 38, the overnight low 33. Sunday, windy with a mix of sun and clouds. The high will be 38, the overnight low will be 22 degrees. It is 6:49. Again, if you're just joining us, you were trying to join us early. We had some technical issues. In fact, you may have seen my sourpuss as the technical issues were being worked on, evidently. And it's very interesting, actually. We'll share this with you since one of the things we loathe here is being overly formatted. And we like to share with you what goes on behind the scenes. This whole experiment in this kind of radio, we consider you a part of it, is we have, as you see here, a number of different things. And one of them fell on the board. There was a connector that broke loose, and one of these devices that we use for playing music, etc., fell on the board. And there are roughly about 120 or so, maybe 250 different buttons and switches. And so you can't tell which one it hit. And you're going across it. Is it depressed? Is it up? Is it down? Is it turned? Is it backwards? So between that and then, coincidentally, for reasons we have no idea, our phone system went offline. Well, we wanted to fix it all before we went on the air. And thank you. Thanks are in order to my partner in crime. So we have to go forward now, and forward we will. Let's get to the weather. Let's get to the news. And a lot of news today. I mean, none of it is earth-shaking as what's going on in the major leagues. But let's get to it. What's coming out of Putnam, and this is very important. Putnam DA is pushing for a moratorium on the discovery law, and we can't wait to talk with Mike Duffy at 7:35 about this. Putnam County District Attorney Robert Tendy says his workload has increased since the reform of the New York State's discovery law took effect January 1st. This is in News 12. I guess he doesn't want a fair or a level playing field. You're supposed to give the information that you get during discovery to defense attorneys, Mr. DA. Remember this when you vote, folks. Trendy is sounding off on reform legislation that requires law enforcement agencies to give every piece of evidence to defense teams within 15 days of their arraignment. Tendy fears that would happen, or what would happen, when agencies start missing deadlines. Then hire more people. The law is the law, young man, or whatever age you are. Tendy says that Putnam County has been obligated to release at least 3 jailed suspects under the new law. The suspects qualified for release because their charges were considered nonviolent. One of them was arrested for leaving the scene of a fatal accident. Tendy is pushing for a moratorium on the law. Now, many agencies worried about overtime costs because of the extra clerical work required, but in News 12's exclusive report, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul insists agencies will be saving money. Richard Wittstatter, a criminal defense lawyer, says the new law needs time to play out because it evens the playing field. And that's true, and we should have an even playing field. And again, reason must apply. We take that one away from the DA, but we also give him one. We disagree with the governor's non-speaking, although now he's come out and said that regarding the bail law, they need to take a look at it. Hasty says he doesn't want to look at it. But we've got a couple of stories today that are designed to raise your ire, depending on your political point of view. And one of them, again, it goes back to reason. Now there's this concern coming from all places. The Attorney General of the state of New York, who was upset that she says there's a disproportionate number of people of color who get arrested at turnstiles. And she says that there was a time going back when some police were targeting people of color. Now, while that's reprehensible, I think you're going to see moderate people, liberals as well, getting fed up with making everything a racial issue if the numbers don't skew the way certain politicians like. And once again, I'm going to tell my friends on the left, I can see Donald Trump looking in the mirror and saying, make my day. We have to stop this, you folks on the left, the far left. You got to stop. You should attack the exceptions that take place. You should attack racism wherever it exists. And any cop who says that, yeah, we had a deal to only prosecute people who jump turnstiles if they're of color, they should be fired and imprisoned for racism. I'm with you. But to say that a law is unfair because maybe X numbers of people, it's like the RICO statute. I bet it affects more Italians, okay? Where do we go now? What are you going to say to me? Well, more Italians are in the mafia. It's probably true. Only Italians are in the mafia. You get my drift? Go back up just a little bit. Unless you want to see Ronald Reagan. Boy, that's a Freudian slip. You want to see Donald Trump in the White House again. And they would be right not to elect him, but their anger would be right. We have to stop it. By the way, just to flip back to the other side of the political fence, the Hispanic community in Haverstraw is stepping up to help the recovery efforts of Puerto Rico following several massive earthquakes that flattened homes and knocked out power to the island again. Good for them. Haverstraw Deputy Supervisor Isidoro Papo Cancel is one of many Puerto Ricans who received images of the damage from family members. The community is organizing fundraising for the Caribbean island this Sunday at Carib Tapas. In a little while, we're going to talk about a story. And it's amazing how a brain surgeon, the guy in charge of Health and Human Services for this country, is, well, an idiot when it comes to doing his job. He's either that or he's a coward, because he's a part of holding up the $8 billion that's supposed to go to the island. Now, the pretext is, or at least what has been announced by the president, the pretext is, well, it's a corrupt place. All right, so put it in overseer and have them distribute the money, Mr. President. But I think this is just me, and it's going to upset my friends on the right, but since I've already upset the left, why not skew both of you? And that is that I don't think he wants to help Puerto Ricans in an election year. That's my heart. Now, do I think he's a racist? To be honest, no. I just think he's that cynical who could care less. So I don't think that he would make whatever decision he had to make to get votes. And maybe others would too, but this is ridiculous. $8 billion has been set aside by Congress. If the president believes, and he has reason to believe that there's corruption on the island, provide some sort of a magistrate or a viceroy or something. Use your executive powers, Mr. President, to do that. All right, and yes, I'm mixing. Let me put my cards on the table. One of the things I'm doing today is, and every once in a while we'll do this, we're mixing commentary with the news, but I'll be very clear on which is which. Now, we have Cortland in the news today. We do up-county stuff. Cortland officials are divided over a major project that could transform the undeveloped portion of town. The Cortland Town Board is looking at about 40 acres of property in Woodlands across the street from the New York Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital. This is News 12 this morning. We'll be voting on whether or not to rezone the land into a medical-oriented district, basically building on the land to encourage economic expansion near the hospital. And actually, that's good because people who work in the hospital can have a place to live. It is 6:57. A Yonkers man was convicted of second-degree murder Tuesday in the 2017 death of a 16-year-old acquaintance who he pinned to a wall with his car following a brawl with her boyfriend and others outside a Yonkers apartment building. Well done, Mr. Thompson. Jurors rejected Joel Thompson's testimony that he never intended to hurt Maidson Denman, much less kill her, but that he had blacked out at the wheel after getting beat up. Thompson, 25, faces a prison term of at least 15 years to life and as much as 25 years to life. He was returned to the county jail to await sentencing, with which Judge George Fafetido scheduled for February 27, and it's Fafidio. Sorry, not Judge, Your Honor, just in case I ever have to be in front of you. Don't hope to be. It is 6:58. Some of the nation's top news media organizations are rallying behind the Journal News' year-long effort to have New York State Thruway Authority turn over documents critical to the public's understanding of how taxpayer money was spent to build the $4 billion Governor Mario Cuomo Bridge. 21 organizations, along with the Reporters Committee for Freedom, are backing them up because of their investigation. The Journal News has been taking heat from the Thruway Authority. And before we go to our first guest, former MSNBC commentator Mimi Rocha hits $325,000 mark in Westchester, TA. I can't wait to get her on, and we will be fair with her. But why is she challenging a sitting DA who's done a good job and who has a low. When I say low, he's not out there for the glory and the glamour, and he's not on TV. He's just doing his job. Do we really need, and I'm going to ask her, do we need someone from TV? Why are you doing it? Are you going to become another activist DA? It's possible. I know who that is. We have one more story to do, Mr. Russo, and we will be with you momentarily. The Boston Red Sox fired manager Alex Cora yesterday, a day after Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred implicated him in the sports sign stealing scandal. Cora was the bench coach for the Houston Astros when they won the 2017 World Series and led Boston to the title the following year. Well, that's 3 to go. The manager of the Astros, he got suspended for a year and fired. The general manager of the Astros suspended for the year and fired. And the manager of, and this hasn't stopped, there may be more investigations in Boston, the manager of the Boston Red Sox has been now fired, sacked and fired. And the only person named in the report who is still standing, who we understand now through stories that have come out was probably the ringleader of it, and who kind of pulled the Sergeant Schultz deal. I know nothing. Carlos Beltran. It seems, although because it's New York and because it's a moneyed place, he'll probably survive. But should he? We'll open the phones later about that. Should Carlos Beltran be fired or suspended? Now, because he was a player, I'm going to make one comment and then open the phone with Vince. Because he was a player, they said we can't know all the players who did it, and if we don't punish all the players, we can't punish just one. Well, that's exactly what they did in the PED scandal. So baseball is hypocritical as we sit here and speak. Because, as you know, during the Pet investigation, they admitted that there were another 140 players or so, more or less, who they knew did PEDs but have an agreement with the union to not out them. Well, you know what then? Then stop criticizing all of the other players you know did PEDs. Go ahead and put them in the Hall of Fame, put Bonds in the Hall of Fame, put, so many different people. The great pitcher who won 7 Cy Youngs, put them in the Hall of Fame. Stop talking baseball out of both sides of your mouth. Okay, it is 7:01. We're going to go to our first guest in a minute, but we do have to give the weather one more time. Now, remember, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Let's look at it again. It is 41, but it's going to get up to 49 today. Mostly sunny skies. The temperature will be 50. Vince Russo will be out in a Speedo jogging around North Jersey. Tonight, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature 38. The wind will be 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tomorrow, windy with a mix of sun and clouds. Very windy. Wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour, but we will get up to 46. Still a little warm. Friday, that all ends. Lots of sunshine and breezy. The high only 29 all day. The overnight low will be 16 degrees. Saturday, snow late in the day. The high 38. The overnight will be 33, so the snow won't last long. And Sunday, windy again with a mix of sun and clouds. The high will be 38 degrees. The overnight low will be 22. And the top of the hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhdc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Con, and plug-in virtual reality. And, of course, our friends at Dominic's Fine Cigars. You're listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, your radio station at the train station. And we go to our first guest of the day. He's on at 7 today. We've got a crammed schedule, and he was probably looking at my face before. So let's say hello to him. Good morning, Vince. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Bob. How's it going?
I was pretty crabby a little while ago. We had the classic technical...
A little while ago?
Oh, really? That's where we go. No warming up in the bullpen or anything, huh? All right. No, well, here. By the way, you know one insight I had? No, I don't have the technical skills of others, but I did this special, and it's really interesting. I did this 6-hour special, which I was very proud of, about Indian Point, because, you know, everybody's running around. We're all going to die. There's a nuclear power plant, everything, So I said, let me go up here. And you know what I discovered, Vince?
What's that, Bob?
That it was one of the most well-run entities, one of the most well-run organizations and enterprises I have ever had the privilege to visit. Incredibly
Yeah, I'm
well
not
run.
surprised.
Well, I know, but incredibly so. Thought through to the nth degree, and the rigor, et cetera, just really stupendous. But one of the subtleties was they have two different control rooms. One where they actually do the real deal, and the other where they train people, and they are identical in every way. And they actually let me scramble the plant. But here's how I had insight. Now it took Sarah to fix it, but remotely, or at least figure it out at the nth degree. But I remembered that when I was touring the plant, when I walked into the control room, I noticed that no one was wearing a hard hat. And I said, there's hard hats everywhere else. How come you're not wearing them here? And the executive said to me, because a hard hat could fall on one of these boards and hit a switch.
And blow up the world.
Yeah, well, not blow up the world, but So anyway, one of the devices that we have here had fallen overnight onto the board. So I assumed that it was a little button, and sure enough, it was one little freaking bleeping, shooting, biscuit little button. Took forever to find, but because you got to go through all of them, and recycle them almost. So only 150 buttons or whatever's over there. And then, of course, my phone system went down, and I had a face on that you could have melted rubber with. Anyway, all right. I want to go straight to two things. One, do you think that Carlos Beltran should get fired? And do you know what that's about?
Yeah, I do know what it's about. Yes, I do think he should get fired, and not only do I think he should get fired, I think they should vacate the World Series win from the team. I think that they should say that the win is now void because they cheated, and not have any winner in the record books.
You know what they're worried about and why they're not going to do that? I think that there's more to this, and what I mean is I think a lot more teams cheat. And they're afraid.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They're afraid of just destroying the whole sport right in front of our eyes. That's my take, anyway.
Well, you see it in football. I mean, the New England Patriots are constantly cheating, constantly getting caught, and nothing is really done about it.
Because it's all about the Benjamins, my friend. That's Robert Kraft, who I defended last week, who they make a big case out of an 85-year-old man. Anyway, let me move on, because someone will say, everybody called that day and said, you're supporting sex slavery. I said, no, I wasn't. It had nothing to do with sex slavery. The assumption in the context was that the person was there of their own free will and making a living. Anyway, but let me move on. Do you find the same hypocrisy I do in saying they don't want to fire or punish Beltran because all the players are off the hook because they couldn't possibly ensure that they weren't letting people off the hook, whereas baseball willingly did that in the Ped scandal?
Yeah.
Remember they said they had another 140 people, but we can't out them, but we're still going to eviscerate all these other people. No, these other people should be allowed to go in the Hall of Fame and move on, or out the other 140 today. Same thing here. Be consistent. You caught Beltran, send him to the showers. That whole thing with Beltran is weird. And the guy's out of baseball 1 year. What is he, the Moses of baseball? No, he's just a lapdog for that crazy GM they have.
Well, the steroid thing in baseball, they turned a blind eye to it. Mark McGwire was like, he looked ridiculous physically, and he was hitting all these home runs, and they didn't say a word.
Remember when he first came up, he was thin like Michael Jordan, and in a few years he looked like, what was that, Bruno Sammartino. And what about your boy, Mr., your New York Giant? What's his name? Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds.
His head swelled up like a pumpkin.
Yeah. Yeah. Baseball, they didn't care because people were enjoying it, that they were hitting all these home runs. So, Yeah, baseball and sports in general are a business, and when there's money to be made, they don't care.
Hey, I got another story that is bound to tickle your fancy. Well, I got so many stories I can go today, but I want to go to this one because it's bothering me. It's bothering me a lot. I don't trust Letitia James anymore, and it's the first time in my life that I haven't trusted an attorney general. An attorney general is right to come out and punish racial discrimination and hate crimes. But all of a sudden, she's saying now that there's bias in busting people who jump turnstiles. And because there once was bias, some cops admitted that they were, and they should be punished. But now she's saying, well, there are more black people than white people getting busted for this. And it's healthy to keep an eye on it, but to make a big news story out of it seems to me to be one more agenda-driven bit of bullspit that's going to put Donald Trump right back in the White House. What is
Well, that
wrong
was the
with...
same basis that they used for this having no bail. Oh, mostly black people. Well, if those are the people committing the crimes, then it is what it is. I don't think that there are situations where the police say, "Oh, a white guy is involved in this. We're not going to arrest him. Oh, we're only going to arrest black people."
No,
Doesn't
that's
make any
true.
sense.
Although where there is a middle ground or a reasonable thing is, so many people got arrested for really minor crimes, and because they were poor, they couldn't afford to raise bail. I get that, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, there are people in jail a year, 2 years for minor offenses before they even get to go to trial. I understood that part of the law, but not giving judges discretion is insane. Ergo, this guy who's now the president of the head of the Senate, of the Congress, Heastie, he says he doesn't even want to revisit the law, and because he wants votes, and that's tyranny. We can't.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's tyranny. It's legal tyranny because if he feels that he's getting votes and he lives in a black district, what are you going to do? It's like down south with the crazy whites down there, feeling that they've got legislators who are going to vote for them no matter what. I mean, those legislators have people that are going to vote for them. We can't. One of the things I'm learning. Remember an old line we used to talk about when we were younger and both in school. One form of tyranny is over replaced by another. I have noticed with some parts of the Me Too movement and parts of the civil rights movement that where they do go too far, there's this anger where they want to punish rather than correct. And we see this again and again. This whole thing among the youth today of the woke movement, where just all you need to do is be accused and you're convicted. No, it doesn't work that way because you're angry. You are right to be angry. Blacks were disproportionately treated. There was bias. We get that. But to call rather than deal with the bottom line issues, I mean, it's nuts. Anyway, apropos, got another one for you. Ready for this? This should come as no surprise. 3 teachers at a troubled Queens middle school failed to top a videotape pummeling of a 13-year-old girl. They didn't want to get involved because they didn't want to get in trouble.
They failed to do what?
They failed to intervene. They let the girl get beat up.
Oh, you see stories of that happening all the time, and I'm convinced in schools that when a kid is being bullied, that by and large these staff and administration know about it and don't do anything.
Well, because what can they do about it? See, what it boils down to is, I told you my formula, and here I get in trouble every time I do this, but I'm going to do it again, although one guy just got stabbed doing it. First, you go to the school. Then you go to the cops. Then you go to the parents, and then you get a bat. Okay? Because you do not want your kid going through the rest of his or her life a compromised neurotic because you didn't do anything about it. Now, it's dangerous, albeit, and, like we saw a case, finally, 2 men whose kids were bullying one another or whatever had it out the other day, but one guy brought a knife to a fist fight, so it didn't end well. But the problem is that And again, and this is why I am cautioning my friends on the far left, and I hate saying what I'm about to say, but a lot we saw here in New Rochelle, the murder of a young girl turned into a racial incident when nobody made it a racial incident except for the civil rights people. They were so worried that people were upset that the perpetrator was black that they went on this mission to create a whole alternate universe regarding this issue, that it was all about racism. How is it race? I mean, obviously, there was an agenda. Certainly, there's poverty, certainly. But you weren't allowed to say that. This group got up, and they said, well, if you say it's poverty, you're a racist. If you say it's culture, you're a racist. If you say it's the parents in the home, you're a racist. Well, nobody said any of those things. They simply wanted to know, what can we do to keep the kids in school so they won't kill one another outside? And I've become so disillusioned with a movement that I've supported all my life. It's so anyway. So that's kind of what's going on. So and another thing, you know what I can't figure out, and maybe you can help me with this. See, I got everybody mad at me today, liberals and conservatives. Let me go after the conservatives again. The former brain surgeon who the president put in charge, because he actually knew somebody who was black, who the president put in charge of Health and Human Services. I just had it in front of me.
Ben Carson?
Yeah. How can someone who's a brain surgeon be such a lapdog, wuss bunny piece of crap? He's holding up $8 billion of aid to Puerto Rico. Now, you know why, don't you? You know why.
Yeah, because he doesn't. The president doesn't want to give the island the relief it needs.
Well, the president doesn't want to do it because his supporters will be upset that he helped out brown people. All right, there is corruption on the island, though. There is another side to it. But since this president, as was the one before him, since they use executive orders all the time, why can't he appoint the classic viceroy or the administrator to give out the money? In other words, I'm sending Damie Diamond, or that piece of crap, somebody like that, to the island to distribute the money where it's needed, okay? Because what the president hopefully doesn't want to see is like in the movie Black Hawk Down, where the rice gets delivered and then the government steals it.
Yeah.
But I believe
I don't know. You may not be able to. You may not be able to do that. That may supersede the local authority. You can't take over the Commonwealth. You can't. Just like with a state, you can't take it over.
You can declare you can declare an emergency. I bet you, and do it. Come on, this is a president that breaks every rule, and you're telling me he won't break a rule to help people?
Well, it doesn't mean he
it's a little inconsistent.
Rules. I mean,
of course he should.
We're complaining about him not breaking. No, not in this instance. That doesn't work.
In other words, I'm asking you, why not break? If there is such a great prohibition, why doesn't he do this one? When he would actually maybe even get Latino votes from it.
He probably didn't even think of it, but
no, he would. But he would lose votes from his tattooed. The plug is out. Tattooed pickup truck driving, beer drinking.
Don't
buddies.
Say it.
Yeah,
don't
I didn't mention the NRA, did I? I'm just breaking your chops, trying to get your honor up.
But I watched that debate last night. On the Democrat side. And it was pretty interesting, I thought.
I heard. I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch it, huh? Oh, boy. To me, the person who came out the best was Pete Buttigieg.
He always does.
At least in my opinion. I read some commentary that said that they thought his performance was lackluster. But I think what I like about Buttigieg is he's very moderated. He's very
he's reasonable. He's smart, but he's only never got more than 10,000 votes.
I know.
Yeah, everybody he's the smartest guy in the room. I think there's no question.
And Biden really looks like he's deteriorating. I mean, he has trouble putting a coherent sentence together.
I know.
And I like Joe. I thought he would have been the best candidate, but he's stumbling over words and he can't,
My
know,
my boy
follow
is bringing up the
through.
rear. My boy Bloomberg, he's gonna come from behind.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to get it. I watched a few of them that kind of struck me. Klobuchar wasn't bad. I could see Buttigieg and Klobuchar as a good,
Yeah.
president and vice president. I
Yeah,
thought that would be a good idea. Bernie is Bernie. I mean, it's I'm going to do this.
He's like a doll. He's like a little puppet. They should have Bernie puppets. By the way,
Yeah.
do you know that people on Fox News are now conjecturing that Buttigieg, that's my next guess, that Buttigieg is probably not gay, that it's all an affectation. You gotta love Fox News. You gotta
Okay.
love Fox News.
You know.
Oh, and another thing, there's this movement afoot that says that in the right, that they want President Obama to come clean, that his wife is a transgender. You gotta love the hard right. You gotta love them. You do. You do.
Oh, so Elizabeth Warren was her usual
Charming
raving
self.
self.
Yeah, she's
She's
toast.
Who's gonna vote for her?
She's
I
toast.
don't get it. I don't get it. And then the other fellow there, which I never can remember his name, the guy who's the billionaire. Yeah, he said some stuff that was okay, but his basis of his campaign is climate change. And while I don't disagree with the man, I don't think it's going to get much traction. People don't want to hear it about climate change, even though they see all of these ridiculous examples of climate change affecting the planet. I mean, Australia's burning up. You've got Midwest with, 500-year floods every year.
I didn't wear a sweater
this,
again today.
Yeah. I mean, you see all this evidence, and yet people don't want to hear of it.
Same as the
And so
evidence of the split between rich and poor. Do you know how much money it was announced this morning that I'll get to you? Do you know how much money it was announced that J.P. Morgan Chase made this year?
No,
Take a guess at a number.
no, I don't know. Several $1 trillion.
No,
idea.
$35 billion.
Okay.
And there are no jobs that pay a lot of money anymore. Listen, I got to go. I'm running late, but thank you, partner. I'll talk to you again later. Vince Russo,
All right, Bob,
everybody.
thank you.
Take care. Let's go to our next guest. He's on time as he usually is, and I am a minute late to get to him. Please welcome Mike Edelman. Good morning, Michael.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well. I'm annoyed. We started out with technical difficulties, so it's made me ornery. I threw the Republicans and the Democrats, the extremes, under the bus today. We got Letitia James, who's to the left of Marx, and we have. It says I'm going to lose my mind, and then I'm trying to figure out, and I'm going to start out with this question: why won't the president? And why won't the former brain surgeon, who when it comes to having integrity is an empty suit, why won't they give the $8 billion that Congress approved to Puerto Rico? Now, I tell you my own opinion. It's that he doesn't want to appear to help brown people in an election year.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's very simple. He doesn't recognize Puerto Rico as part of the United States because it's not the same color as his base. It's all about perception for him. It's all about wink and a nod. It's all about Charlottesville. You see his technique in Charlottesville. He condemns it with his left hand and then will find people on both sides so that he can send a message to the Daily Stormer readers, that he's one of them. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's my take. But why would a man who had such a stellar reputation buy into that? Why would he allow this to happen? Why doesn't he just walk out?
Who are you talking about there, Barr?
No, I'm talking about the Health and Human Services guy.
Well, all of these guys pay homage as required to this president as a condition of their employment. This is a guy that wants to sit around a table and have people tell him how wonderful he is because he needs that reinforcement. And have you ever seen a president require his cabinet to pay homage? The only one that didn't when he did that was Jim Mattis, who didn't talk about Trump. He talked about our troops, which is an appropriate thing to say. So Donald Trump is a very insecure president who needs to be complimented, who needs to take credit for anything and everything, including the decreased cancer rates in the country, and wants to take credit for why I think it's the Prime Minister of Libya got the Peace Prize and he didn't. This is very strange circumstances. This is definitely not normal times.
Well, no. Well, one of the things that troubled me, and it wasn't until last night that it troubled me. You know, whenever I have you on, people will say I throw you red meat. Well, of course I do, because these are the issues that are out there, and I want your comment on them. But I understand that the world is a better place without this guy who the president killed. But I think what some people are missing, the president admitted yesterday that more or less there was no information about 4 embassies being blown up, and then he says it doesn't matter. Someone should have done it 20 years ago.
That may be right.
Well,
but why lie about it?
No, but worse than that, it opens up another. We don't even talk like this anymore as Americans. We had an express policy against assassinations.
Yes.
And 20 years ago, it would have been an assassination. So what he's doing, once again, he's capturing an emotion that doesn't fit the culture of this country.
Look, they try to justify taking out, as bad as he was still an official of a state that we don't get along with. So this is not like taking out Osama bin Laden, who was a non-state terrorist. This is a guy who was in line to be the president.
Well, I understand
of Iran.
Now, again, because
if you're going to take him out, you got to show that he's involved in something nefarious right now, not that he was commanded the Quds Force for 20 years. And they didn't show that. And then they they could have just said, this was a bad guy, killed a lot of Americans. We decided to take him out and let people argue about whether it's violated.
But why lie to us? He doesn't have to. He's the commander-in-chief. He made a decision that I think it may actually work out very well, and perhaps he needs to be commended for it. But why lie bold-faced, and why talk about 20 years ago that he's not a king?
Well, he thinks he is, and he's told 15,000 lies in the time he's been president. What makes you think he's going to tell the truth?
And again, he's a politician, and that's what they do. I mean, you know what I'm worried about? I'm going to flip gears here a little bit, because people allow anger to justify sentiment. The New York Post has a piece, although it was in every paper, that if the comatose victim dies in the attack at the Hanukkah attack, people are dancing in the streets that he may get the death penalty. Well, he's not going to get any penalty if it's deemed that he has mental illness, regardless of whether or not what he did was anti-Semitic. But when you get people at a fever pitch, you can't reason with them. We can't.
Well,
we should not be celebrating the fact that they want to kill someone who's mentally ill.
That's exactly right. I used to be a proponent when I was younger of the death penalty, it doesn't. The death penalty doesn't discourage somebody from a crime of passion. It doesn't discourage somebody from committing a crime, from taking out a gun and completing the crime. So it really doesn't serve a whole bunch of good purposes other than to take a life. And maybe the state shouldn't be taking lives. Let's lock them up forever. And this is not about saving money because you're killing them. It's about taking their liberty away for the rest of their natural life. If he is mentally incompetent, then whether or not he was motivated by anti-Semitism or something personal in his life 25 years ago when he was what they call a Shabbat Goy, he actually worked in synagogue on Saturday. It's called the Shabbos Goy, right? And he worked in synagogue. So he had bad feelings for the Jews that he came in contact with. I don't know. But if he's found to be mentally unfit, he doesn't get the death penalty.
Well, of course. Now,
we don't do that.
This may surprise you. I still support the death penalty, but I have a moratorium in my head about it because I've lost so much faith in DAs and the number of people who are wrongly convicted. But if I was sure, I still believe it because it has a very low rate of recidivism. And maybe because I'm closing in on 70, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
but I think back to 25 years ago, and it ain't nothing. And so you take a life, and all you get is 25 years, and you're out walking. A guy who's 20
Well,
now,
no.
the guy's out. He's only
I'm
40.
not suggesting anybody get out. I'm not suggesting anybody get out. I think you give them life without parole.
Okay, well,
Now, would you rather be executed or sit around for 40 years
I don't know.
in a cell?
Well, I want to go to something that really bothered me. This is on the other side of the political aisle. And then I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Letitia James is now turning this turnstile thing into a racial thing. And I worry that the left, that the far left is going off the rails, and now it's in someone who's a law enforcement official. Now, she's right when she says, if this is found, if we find out that people are jumping turnstiles and that only the people of color are being targeted, she'd be right to call for those cops to be fired, as there once was. But it seems that Letitia James and Hasty, and now the assembly, that the far left in New York is going off the rails with this.
Well, look, if somebody jumps the turnstiles, the question is, you're going to arrest them, right? This is not a major crime.
No, but they still should be. No, but she's saying they're being arrested because they're black.
No, but how are you going to prove that? If the police are targeting, if the police are on 125th Street, right, and they're watching people jump, the chances are the person's going to be black.
But that's my point.
So how is that racist?
Well,
That's not
see,
racist.
here's something
That's
I've been calling for. This man who still considers himself mostly liberal, that would be me. What I'd find to like to see the middle class, black and white, who's busting their butts every day to try and scrounge together a living, working 2 jobs and everything else, working women who have children at home, they ought to, for a day, go on a strike. Don't pay to get through the turnstiles. Take the easy pass off the car and blank your license plate, and finally tell the left side, enough with this. What about us? Do we got to pay for everybody? Some people have to be brought to the bear being more responsible with their lives, and it's not all racism. It's ridiculous.
Well, you're talking about civil disobedience. Just need somebody to coordinate it. That would be you.
It just might be. I'm telling you, I'm really, because it takes someone who's been fair, and I do believe I am fair-minded to do it, not some polemicist on the right or left. But after doing the news for 15 years, some of this stuff is so clearly baloney. Okay, I have one other issue to bring to you. I heard this morning in the earliest news that they may now have enough votes among Republicans to force witnesses in the impeachment.
Yes, they do.
What happens if the president declares executive privilege? And
Both the court. But you have to understand the whole point of this exercise is to force Trump to try and stop people from hearing the truth. There was a note today, Lev Parnas, he's the guy that's indicted from Ukraine. He turned over a trove of information to the House committee, and among the things he turned over was a note that Rudy Giuliani sent to the president of Ukraine, which says, paraphrasing, I am doing Trump's bidding. I need a meeting, and I need you to investigate Joe Biden and Burisma.
Mhm.
And you need to announce it. You need to announce
Yes,
the
I know that.
investigation.
Of course, we knew that, though.
Yeah, no, we didn't. There are people all over the country that do not believe it. They simply don't believe it because Fox doesn't talk about it. And if they don't hear it on Fox, they don't believe it. A congressman from Connecticut, a Republican, said, he was interviewed by CNN, he said, it's the Communist News Network. I only talk to Fox and Breitbart and ON, and that's the congressman who wouldn't give an interview to a mainstream media outlet.
Oh, my goodness. The Daily Caller. Oh, my goodness. So it should be interesting. I hope, and even for the sake of the president, because he's not going to get convicted, I hope that that Bolton is allowed to testify, and that if he will he be the one person, because it wasn't Mueller, will he be the one person that's willing to defy this president and defy timidity and make a difference in this whole thing? Will he be that
I'm
person?
hoping so. The problem with Bolton is he's got a book coming out, and he may not want to step on his book message with testimony that reveals what he's saying in his book, but that would be very unfair to the process and unfair to the Constitution. He was in the room. He knows what Trump said. He called it a drug deal. He said Rudy Giuliani was a hand grenade that's going to blow us all up. He's got to tell us why he said those things.
It didn't happen. I'm going to annoy the hell out of you. It didn't happen. And now one last thing. Let's go to baseball. Should the Mets manager be fired?
For the
Beltran. Yeah, everybody else got fired.
If it's about stealing signs, I'm not sure. That's been going on forever. Yogi,
Well, but they just it caused three other men.
They're doing it with high tech now. That's the only. Instead of binoculars from center field.
Well, the other three guys got fired.
I know that.
See, I think Beltran's got to go. And if he doesn't go, then they got to let, and this is by extension, they got to let Barry Bonds and everybody else in the Hall of Fame.
That's nonsense. This is the tradition in the major leagues is they've always stole signs, and there's some people that even with the stolen signs have a batting average of 170.
No, I know, but they were explicitly told not to do it with high tech. There were people in baseball that always used some form of PED, greenies, whatever, of PED. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw in a little baseball at you.
I think professional sports is highly overrated anyway, particularly football. I wouldn't let my kid play it. He was a brilliant athlete. In every other sport, I would not let him play football.
Hey, that's interesting. But you'd let him play golf. Are you ready to get back on the greens yet?
Not yet. I'm still undergoing, shots and therapy, and pretty soon, hopefully, I will be back.
Well, Michael, thank you very much. Thanks for accommodating us today, and
You're
talk
welcome.
to you
Anytime, Bob.
real soon.
Excellent.
All righty, we're going to be moving ahead. We will be hearing from who's up next? Mike Duffy. Boy, do I have a lot to talk about with him. But first, we do have to get back to the weather. I do believe that is Mr. Duffy. We will get to you momentarily. I have a responsibility to the weather. All righty, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. It's 40 degrees now. It's a classic. It gets colder before it gets warmer. But we have a nice day ahead, mostly sunny skies, and the temperature will get up to 50. Tonight, mostly cloudy with scattered showers. The temperature will be 38 degrees. Thursday, windy with a mix of sun and clouds. The temperature up to 46, but it'll be breezy. The wind out of the northwest at up to 40 miles per hour. Friday, things change, and they change radically. Lots of sunshine and breezy, but it'll only get up to 29, and at night on Friday, 16. And Saturday, you got the white stuff. Some snow late in the day, but a high of 38. The overnight low will be 33, so the snow won't stay. And on Sunday, windy with a mix of sun and clouds. The high will be 38 degrees. The bottom of the 7 o'clock hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Kahn. Dominic's Fine Cigars, and plug-in virtual reality. And just a reminder, at 10 o'clock today, the premiere of Time to Talk with Jen Graziano. And we're looking forward to that show today at 10. And that's the weather, and that is our little break. And next we go to a man who, he sees all sides of it because he's worked all sides of these issues. He's a lawyer now. He's a defense attorney. He has been the head of investigations for the DA, for the DA's office here in Westchester. He's been a cop on the beat. He's been a detective. Please welcome Mike Duffy. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robert. How are you?
Good. I have a lot of stuff for you today.
Okay.
I opened the show with this story, and I thought of you right away. Are you aware that the Putnam DA wants a moratorium on the discovery law? Are you ready to call him up and say, tough tiddlies, you've had it your way for too long?
Yeah, I don't think a moratorium is the way to go.
Hire more people.
It obviously needs to be adjusted. I think the governor is even getting in line with that. But that's going to take time. But,
no, but that's the discovery part. I'm not even talking about the other part. I'm not talking about the...
Right, the bail reform.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you know what? I don't agree with that at all for a variety of reasons. Now's not the time to do it. Okay, you could have done it before. This law has been in the works. It's not like it passed instantly. They knew January 1st, the law was going to take effect, and I know personally that DA's offices are overwhelmed with the discovery. But you know what? They should have been doing it for years. The state of Connecticut does it, and no, bail reform is a different issue. The discovery, it should be a level playing field out there.
We're going there next, my friend. We're going to bail reform next. I am so disappointed. Well, he's finally said something. The governor gets up there for an hour, and he talks about everything from electricity to why there's a God in the sky, and not a peep about bail reform. What a timid man in that instance. But now he's mentioning it. But Hasty, whatever his name is, he doesn't want to go along. What is wrong? The far left is losing the plot, as the Brits like to say.
The bail reform was a Democratic talking point for years. And I understand a certain aspect of it. I understand that if a person's in jail, we went over this last week, for a relatively minor offense, let alone, let's not go into the big offenses now, but say my example last week was a person gets arrested for petty larceny, a Mount Vernon kid or a inner city Yonkers or White Plains kid gets arrested, 18 years old, he's treated as an adult, $250 bail, and a lot of times they can't get that bail up, and the next court appearance may be 3 weeks. So that person's going to spend 3 weeks in jail, whereas somebody from not even a well-to-do family, but somebody with a family with a job and a financial, not a financial background, but a middle-income background can easily put the $250 out, and the person is out within hours of the arrest. So that's where it needed to be reformed, but they went way overboard, and it's ridiculous, some of the offenses that are not so-called qualifying offenses. So
yeah, it is ridiculous. We're talking with Mike Duffy. He's a defense attorney these days, but he's also been on the other side of the fence. He's prosecuted cases not a prosecutor per se, but as the investigator for the DA's office, as a detective and cop on the beat. Maybe I overreacted to this story. I don't know. You tell me. But Letitia James is a rock in my shoe that I can't get out. She's saying that Tisha's tackling, she says there's bias in turnstile jumping busts because she says at one time some cops admitted to targeting people of color. But I just don't want to believe that that's still the case. But I'm troubled by this. That is everything now by our friends on the left the result of racism?
I did see that story. I think she's ridiculous in stating that. I think Mike Edelman gave a great example that if it's 125th Street, and you know what, they're just issuing tickets now for this, Bob. Manhattan DA's office said they weren't even Cy Vance said they weren't even going to prosecute these cases. So I don't think the cops are going crazy as far as enforcing this. But when you're standing there as a police officer or a pair of police officers and you see 2 or 3 people jump the turnstile, what are you supposed to do? Nothing? I mean, is that what she wants? That's what it's getting down to. And there was a video, I think you and I had discussed this. I don't know if you had seen the video, but where a whole group of people jumped the turnstile back around Christmas time, and it was just like, so what? What's the big deal? And meanwhile, every other businessman or hard-working college student is walking through and swiping their cards and doing it the legitimate way. Now, if that's what she's condoning, she's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you may have heard me hint at it with Mike Edelman. I've been talking for about a month now about the possibility of having a middle-class uprising, but peaceful, where for one day in April, no one pays with their match. Everyone goes through the turnstiles. Everyone. To wake up the far left and to wake up the government's hands in our pockets. Everybody takes the easy pass out of their car and puts a blank over their license plate. And we show the government what it'd be like if we stop having people. I mean, it's almost tyranny at this point. We don't have any say in it anymore. You can't
No,
take
and there's abusers out there. You mentioned Easy Pass. There's these license plate covers. They're translucent, but they're illegal, and they block the Easy Pass. So people are putting those on. And I mean, larceny is always in somebody's heart.
But I want them to do it as a political message.
I understand.
I just because.
But you're never going to get enough people to do that, Bob, because people say, no, I can't do that. They actually would have a hard time doing that.
Well, what about going through the turnstiles?
No, I think the same thing.
Too bad.
Don't you? Can you see people in suits and everything jumping the turnstiles?
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
The other gate open?
Wouldn't it be wonderful? Yeah, but so they just want to keep getting ripped off and ripped off and ripped. I mean, if we're gonna see, I don't have a problem. It's like when I lost all that money over that house that I had. My beef with the government was this: all right, you want me to keep squatters in this house, and I've got to support them. If you think they should stay, then you pay. Why make me pay for them? Mm-hmm. Never got an answer.
Oh. Well, to get back to that Letitia James example, Bob, you know what? I don't think she was ever out on the street enforcing the law. You know what? The people I worked with as police officers, even when I was an investigator in the DA's office or whatever I was doing, they went after people that violated the law, committed a crime. Didn't matter if you were black, white, or whatever. Sounds like a cliche, but it was the truth. And NYPD is such a big department. They have such a hierarchy that they would never condone anything like that. Who is doing the turnstile jumping? If it's a black kid or a black adult, you arrest them. If it's white, you arrest them. Asian, you arrest them.
Well, Well, what we're seeing is a plethora of people in jobs that are agenda-driven, which brings me to my next item.
But she is right. If it's disproportionate and it's targeted, it's wrong.
Well, of course
it's like
it is.
That in everything, though. But I don't think that's the fact.
All right. Now I'm going to move on to something else because, as you can tell, I'm getting woefully tired of agenda-driven people. This woman who wants to run. Now, I've been unfair because I haven't talked to her yet, but it sticks in my craw that yet another TV star wants to be a DA. And she's raised $325,000. Good for her. Why would a Democrat go after another Democrat who is doing the job and isn't seeking the limelight just to do his job? Shouldn't people be a little wary of someone who just wants to be a star?
Well, the people have to make their own decision, but maybe she's looking at a stepping stone to governor, something like that. But I saw her Twitter feed the other day, and it looked like she had a nice little party fundraiser, which all politicians do, which I had. And it looked like, if you looked at that crowd, I was looking at the crowd, and I didn't recognize one person from Westchester. It looked like they were all Manhattanites in this photo. And it seems like when she started her campaign, she went right on to the, stop the Trump train, Orange Man bad. Now, I don't know what that has to do with local issues. We have a lot of local issues here in Westchester. She talks about guns. You know what? Guns are not the big issue in Westchester. You have DWI offenses, which are big. You have gang violence. You have you have grand larcenies, which is pretty big in Westchester as far as like orchestrated larcenies. You have identity theft teams coming up here, mostly from the Bronx, and doing those are succinct, special Westchester issues, not President Trump wants this or that. So I think she really has to get down to a more local level and say what her local policies would be if she did get into that office, and what Anthony Scarpino is doing wrong. I haven't seen that yet either, except for one minor thing that I didn't agree with. I forget what the issue was, but it wasn't much of an issue.
No, but the whole, when I look at some of the literature coming out of her, it has to do with, I'm going to be a progressive DA. See, to me, a DA and a judge, they should be interpreting the law and executing the law, not telling me they're going to be a progressive or a conservative.
Exactly. Well, I agree with you 1,000%, Bob. That's exactly right. and you're actually telling us, you're telegraphing that you're not going to do certain things or you are going to do certain things when you don't even know the facts yet.
Right. It's why I have such a problem with the way we vet Supreme Court judges. We give them we actually have them give a verdict before the trial. It drives me nuts. I'm going to have a breakdown doing this freaking job.
Yeah. If she's saying she's viewing everything through a progressive lens, well, we know how she's going to decide a certain position then. You don't know until the crime happens how you're going to, how you can enforce it, whether it's you have evidence to prove it or whatever.
Well, my first question.
I don't think people have a problem with that now, Bob.
Well, I hope, News 12 invited me to be, although now they've sold all that stuff out. They don't do that kind of stuff anymore. But they used to have TV debates, and I used to be on their panel. And in fact, I was on the panel when Scarpino ran.
Uh-huh.
And there are two questions I have for her that I won't sleep until I ask her here or on television. One, why should we bring another TV star, you won't like this, into the DA's office? Because at least I wasn't happy with the way the last.
No, I see your point. I know where you're going.
But that's number one, because is it just about ambition? But number two, exactly what is a progressive DA? Why would you turn your cards up before you get the job, and what does that mean?
Well, I think that's a vote getter in Westchester.
Yeah, no
You've
kidding.
seen the way the elections have gone, and you can't do anything until you get in office. So, if she got up there and said, "I'm gonna, I'm Democratic, but you know what, I'm gonna act more like a conservative Republican," she wouldn't have a chance in hell to get that. So she's got to play the base card, and get the progressive vote in Westchester.
I got another item for you, and both as a defense attorney and as a peace officer in the generic sense, you deal with this all the time. Separating people's anger from the way the law is, that's a constant battle. And I see it now even with this individual who hacked in that anti-Semitic attack over in Rockland. Now, it's turning out that this guy's a schizophrenic and probably crazy. But yeah, people were jumping up and down now that he may actually be eligible for the death penalty. But we shouldn't be. If the guy is deemed to be, whether it was a black person, an anti-Semitic attack, or an anti-Jello attack, if it turns out that this man is insane, the law should matter more than the public outcry.
Well, he may be eligible for a federal death penalty if the feds prosecute it that way. There's no state death penalty except for against police officers, and even that hasn't been enforced.
No, I understand, and I actually am for the death penalty. I'm one of the few people to the left of center that is, because it has a low rate of recidivism.
I'll tell you why I'm for the death penalty, Bob. And years ago, there was a prison guard, Donna Pangett, up at a correctional facility upstate New York. Mm-hmm. And there was, I forget, I'll remember his name. I don't remember it off the top of my head. He was incarcerated for murder. Mm-hmm. And he went and he killed this woman, this correctional officer, and threw her body in a dumpster out of the prison. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you do with a guy like that? You say don't do it again?
No,
put
you
him back
toast
in prison?
Him. Well, what about the guy out west? And this is a 30-year-old story, 25, but it has stayed with me my whole life. This guy gets a young girl. He abuses her sexually, and then he cuts off her arms. Okay. He goes to jail. He gets out of jail, and within a week gets the same girl and rapes her again. Now, now here's where I defer to people who are against the death penalty. We got to get it right, though, and that's why I'm so hard on DAs.
Well, you have to get it right, but you know what? In the real world, life sentence is not ordinarily a life sentence.
That's the problem.
It's 25 years to life, and then you're eligible for parole. And if you get some person who they get out in their 40s, and if they're still inclined to do this,
thank you,
they could obviously do it again.
I don't want them out in their 40s. I'll tell you why. And it's simple. Because I'm closing in on 70, something has hit me. 25 years ain't spit. 25 years is a drop in the bucket. If you're 25, you come out, you're 50 years old, you still got another 30 years to live. I don't want you to have that other 30 years. You turn the lights out on someone, and to use the reverse of the wonderful line in the Torah, you save one life, you save the world entire. You take one life, and you take the world entire away from them. I don't want to ever see your face again.
And yeah, I agree with that, Bob. And also a life sentence. You know what? It costs money to keep people incarcerated. I'm not saying kill them all. I'm not being crazy or anything like that. But you have hundreds or thousands of people in for a life sentence. You need more correction officers. It becomes an economic issue also. I'm a Catholic, and I know the Catholic Church is opposed to the death penalty, but it leaves it up to your individual conscience. And there's some crimes that just cry out for the death penalty. And again, if people were going to be incarcerated for life, well, you know what? The economic issue is what it is. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but that's not the case as far as incarceration goes. A lot of times these people are released and go there. Well, look at the people involved in the Brink shooting over in Rockland County, where 2 police officers were killed.
Yeah,
a couple of them are out. So
you make your point, and. Well, I think you made your point rather eloquently. I want to move on to let you have some fun for a change. I'm always asking you these hard questions of life and death and incarceration or not and justice. But this involves something we all love, but it does involve justice. And that's what's going on in baseball right now. Should Beltran get fired too?
I don't know. I was... I guess the answer is yes. I think anybody involved in that whole issue should be fired. I mean, I know the Yankees, and they're up in arms about what was going on. You're talking about the sign stealing, right?
Yeah. Well, look who just last night they fired the Boston manager, they fired the Houston manager, they fired the GM of Houston. Now I got
Houston. I knew. I didn't know they fired. The
Boston
manager
last night. Now, here's the reasoning that the commissioner used, and since you are a man of judicial wisdom, I think you'll agree with me. Yeah, I know it's scary, isn't it? Here's my thinking. Now, what he said, and I understood it. He said, yes, he's the only name that we have, but we can't know with any certainty the other people that did it that we might not know, and so we shouldn't punish anybody. Well, that's the antithesis of what they did with PEDs. In fact, with PEDs, if you recall, they had 140 ball players that they knew did it, but because of the deal with their union, they couldn't out. Ergo, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and everybody else that did it, they ought to be able to go in the Hall of Fame. Because do you understand my reasoning there? Because which is it? You can't have it one way for one offense and another way in the other.
Well, I guess you can, right?
Well, you can, but because they have absolute authority. But I think Beltran, not him, the person. I think the whole notion of making him the manager is a fraud anyway. This weird GM the Mets have wants a puppy, and he got himself a well-liked lapdog. But he should get
I'm a
fired.
Yankee guy. I'm not a Mets guy, so I don't really care what they do. I used to be a Mets fan years ago, Bob, but
too much pain.
Too bad for you guys.
No, whoa. I root for both teams. So you come after me. You come after me, and I try to give you a light story to deal with rather than all this copper stuff that you have to.
It's like Giants Jets, Gangrene is not my favorite.
Oh, I'm a Giant fan. Now, what do you think of their new coach?
I've seen the articles in the Post. I'm mostly a Post guy. I hate to say that.
Well, the best
to your
sports.
listening audience.
No,
my God,
the Post.
He doesn't read the New York Times, but
I read
they've
both.
had some great articles recently on Judge. I just haven't had the time to read them, so
well,
I don't know. I do have to catch up on that.
They have the best sports page in the country. Nobody comes close to the Post. And of course, they feed red meat to the right, but that makes it fair when I do all my research in the morning.
You gotta love their headlines.
Yeah, I do. Do you know when I was teaching for Merrill Lynch, and this goes to show you how long they've been doing what they do. Whenever you'd get a group that they were in class for a week or whatever, and they'd always come back from lunch lethargic, So what I'd have them do is, remember back in the day, there were a couple of editions. There was the afternoon edition and the evening edition.
Yes, sure.
Well, I had them guess the headline. I give them the story, and the best one was Berkowitz sleeps. Remember, they had a picture of him on the on the gurney.
I remember Headless Man and the Topless Bar. I think that's the most famous.
You would think of that one, wouldn't you? I hope your wife's not listening. Listen, thank you very much, Mike Duffy. You have a great day.
Okay, Bob, thanks.
All right, take
All
care.
right, bye.
Bye-bye. Jake's up next. We want to ask him about this sports thing, and we're going to be talking with a congressional candidate who should be stopping by any moment. Let's take a look at the weather and reset the top of the hour. It's 41 degrees. And remember, the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And folks, it's beautiful. It's going to be 50 today, sunny all day, mostly cloudy tonight, scattered showers, getting down to 38. On Thursday, scattered showers, cloudy, the temperature again around 38. Thursday, again, that's tomorrow, windy with a mix of sun and clouds, temperatures getting up to 46. But Friday, things change, and they change drastically. Lots of sunshine and breezy, but only getting up to 29. That's the high. The overnight low will be 16 degrees. And I can't wait to talk with Jake about, and I'm sure you heard me talking with Mike Edelman, should they fire Beltran too?
Yes, I think they have to, but I don't know how much the Cora firing has to do with, because they caught Boston, and he's the Boston manager.
Mm-hmm.
So is that why they fired Cora, or because he was the mastermind in Houston?
They fired Cora because he was the mastermind in Houston.
But they caught Boston doing the exact same thing. They haven't caught the Mets. Beltran is supposedly...
Wait, then why is the Boston GM not getting fired?
That's a good question.
Because the whole point was accountability.
Will he get fired?
Because
I don't know.
It's beginning to look like the GM of Houston really didn't know about it. He did what everybody did during PEDs. In fact, I've been saying this for 15 years. I'm tired of saying it, but I'm going to say it again. Anyone who reads Joe Torre's book after he left the Yankees, they all knew about PEDs. It was no secret. And they all pretty much had an idea who was doing them. See, I think baseball's got itself in a hypocritical bind.
And there's a lot more that's going to come out between now and opening day. There's a lot more. A lot of teams are going to get caught. A lot more whistleblowers are going to come out. This is just the beginning. Should Beltran be fired? Probably. But that's funny, because if Beltran gets fired, the Mets will be paying Mickey Callaway's salary this year, Beltran's salary, and whoever replaces Beltran.
I don't know. I think for cheating, you don't get your money.
No, I think they're still on the hook for Beltran.
Even if he gets fired, okay. But I do think he should get fired, only for consistency. However, and I need your comment on this. However, hold on. Make sure I leave the phone open. Is your guest calling in?
He's coming in.
Okay.
He should be here any minute.
Now, their reasoning for not suggesting and recommending that Beltran be fired is...
He was a player.
No, he was a player, and that they can't tell which players actually were guilty and which players weren't. But yet they had that same problem in PEDs, and they had no problem suspending.
Well, I think
guys.
Beltran's been caught in a lie. He said that he didn't know of the video room, and he got caught in a lie. So I think that might be the end for Beltran. He obviously had a job interview.
Or maybe suspended.
So who knows what he said in the job interview. The Mets know a lot more than we do. But I think he will get fired. This is, I have to say, I am impressed with MLB. They hammered him pretty good. I didn't think they were going to hammer the Astros or anyone that they suspected. They hammered him pretty good. NFL didn't do this to the Patriots.
No, they didn't. Although I think one of the things that got Manfred's ire up, it was literally that year that he said, if we catch people using electronics to steal signs. I don't know. One person called earlier today and was talking about how, hey, stealing signs has been part of baseball forever, but stealing them more or less legitimately through second basemen who can read the signs. Although famously, we now know that the shot heard around the world. And I interviewed Ralph Frank about this, that they were stealing signs. So I don't know. I've always considered it a part of the game, but where I draw the line, I just don't know. I honestly don't. You know, but now if they see, to me, and I've been a little unkind towards Beltran because his appointment as a manager just seems weird to me. You
just think he's a lapdog.
Yes, I do, and I think that it demeans his dignity to take that job. He was a great ball player, and from all accounts, a man of gravitas when it comes to knowing the game. But then again, you know who they say knows the game better than anybody? Is Rodriguez. In fact, even going back to Torrey's book, he said that. He said he's never had a harder working ball player. You know, so, but evidently Beltran's a nice version of that.
Again,
so I hope he doesn't get out of baseball.
The World Series wasn't that long ago. This story's new. There's going to be a lot more to come with this, I promise. There's a lot more whistleblowers that are going to come out of the woodwork. It'll be interesting. So will Beltran get fired? I think so.
Or suspended. Maybe not for the whole season. You know. Well, we'll see. Now, do you think that football is watching this saying, hey, B, we're going to look weak compared to what Manfred did?
It's interesting. The commissioners, they work for the owners. They work for the owners. They do what the owners say. The owners wanted the game. They didn't want the Astros to have, a huge advantage. They want the game on the up and up. They don't want it tainted. They saw what happened after the steroids. The ratings went down. The owners just care about ratings. They want the game on the up and up. They want integrity. But it'll be interesting to see what the story's not nearly over.
No, it's not. I can't figure out who the heck. I can't figure out where it's going to go from here. I think that baseball has in fact, there's a whole nother school of thought that's emerging in some recess of my crazy brain that maybe they've gone too far. Maybe they shouldn't have been whole year suspensions and firings for Stein sealing because it's always been on the periphery of being legal.
And players take pride in their ability to steal signs and get that
competitive
advantage.
I don't know. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about football. Where are you leaning on these games, the final two?
Well, I always make my picks based on the New York Post spreads, and I heard all day yesterday that the spreads have gone to 7.5 in both games, but the New York Post is stuck on 7, meaning the Chiefs are favored by 7 against the Titans, and the 49ers are favored by 7 against the Packers. This means a big deal to me because there's a big deal in betting between 7 and 7.5. Obviously, you want the touchdown and extra point.
No, who else is going with 7?
Everything I heard yesterday was the spread is up to 7.5.
Why would the Post?
I expected it to go to 8, at least 8 for the Chiefs-Titans game, but the Post this morning says it's still at 7. So
you lean in any way here?
If it stays at 7, gotta go with the favorite. I think, at least in Kansas City. There's a big difference to me between 7 and a 7.5 point spread.
Okay, if it's 7.5, it sounds like you're leaning towards the Pack.
I think I like the Packers to win the game against the 49ers no matter what.
Wow. Okay, but we'll know for sure on Friday. Any other comments regarding Mahomes' game the other day? I'm still flabbergasted that he could do that, but the defense was ridiculously bad.
Terrible. Complete breakdown by the Texans. But now we get to see Mahomes with the, like I said last week about Lamar Jackson. Now Mahomes he had it last year, and he was pretty good, but now he's got all the pressure, all the heat on him. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how he performs against a Titans defense that is very, very stingy.
And his own defense, which was seen to be very porous the other day. I mean, 31 points is a lot of points. And playoffs in any sport usually are tighter. They're defensive affairs. One more question about this. I keep reading, and you're my educator. I keep reading about.
Well, you're the media mastermind. So what do you think? What does ratings-wise, what matchup makes the most sense for the Super Bowl? What would be? I think you got to put
Come on,
Aaron
Chiefs
Rodgers.
and Packers?
You got
Are
to
you
put
kidding?
yeah, that's got to be the.
I watched that whole game, and I
yeah.
can't remember the last time I watched the
But
whole
then in
football game.
Titans 49ers, is that a nightmare?
It's not a nightmare, but man, Chiefs, Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's a matchup from heaven.
And it's such a good story with Andy Reid getting maybe his last chance at winning a Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers his last chance, maybe.
I would have
probably.
liked to see also the Chiefs and Ravens would not have bothered me. Chiefs and Ravens.
I agree. I would watch Lamar Jackson
because I wanted to watch Lamar Jackson in that game. But I'm a huge Mahomes fan. Always liked Aaron Rodgers, but I just love this kid. And what happened was, there's a show, you may know it. There is a TV show where some guy, it was in the middle of the night, I was watching this about a year ago, he interviews top quarterback draft choices. And I think it's called, I don't know, Quarterback Camp or something.
Is that with John Gruden?
I think so.
Yeah.
He did Goff. Is that the guy's name
Yeah.
in L.A.? And he did Mahomes. And Mahomes was relatively small for a quarterback. But this kid was so smart, so poised, so self-aware, just a really decent kid. So was Goff, by the way. But something about Mahomes was special. And even the way he admitted, they showed a lot of tapes of his college games. And they compared it to other people in both cases. And they called him a gunslinger. And he said, yeah, I am a gunslinger. I guess in quarterback, that means the guy likes to throw the ball even on the run.
Takes a lot of risks.
Yeah, and they showed him doing some of these sidearm throws even when he was in trouble to get the ball to somebody. And I know his dad was a major league pitcher for a decade or so, but this boy's got an arm. This kid's
got the best arm I've ever seen.
I mean, and so I wound up, in fact, I think that sports doesn't do that enough. And that's why I've not been one of those people who's been a big fan of. I thought he was great, and I hope he goes into the Hall of Fame. But I was never a fan of Jeter because he never let you in. And he doesn't have to. But when a guy when you talk to these people and see them as a human being, you wind up rooting for them a lot. I know, don't worry. This happens all the time in radio. Sometimes the first time they have a commitment, they don't show or they're late.
Well, I think the parking has a lot to do with it.
But yeah, we'll see. But we'll get him on.
He just texted me he'll be here. He said he was running 5 minutes late. So
okay. And why don't we talk a little bit about this man now?
So I just read something that I think you'll get
go
a
ahead.
real kick out of. So the Summer Olympics are coming up, and guess how many? This is per athlete. How many condoms will be issued to every athlete that they're paying for?
This is they give you thousands of them for these, like a million.
But per athlete,
How many?
You walk in, guess how many? If I was swimming, guess how many I would?
50.
42.
Why
For 3 weeks.
Well, you know what? I read about this once, and what they're saying is you have, I don't know how many athletes. Well, for now we'll say 5,000 for the hell of it. How many athletes show up? Of young, good-looking, in their sexual and physical prime. My goodness, it's going to be like frogs. And we ever see that on television? Oh, why wasn't I blessed with that musical talent?
I thought you'd like that little anecdote.
I do. That's wrong. You're appealing to my.
I wrote it right down as soon as I came across.
You're appealing to the worst angels of my nature. Plus, I've been in a bad mood all day. You missed it this morning.
Temper tantrum.
Oh no, I had a right temper. See the music item. Evidently from the heat or whatever last night, a bracket opened up and it fell on the board and hit a button. I know not which one. And so it took 35 minutes to figure it out because it turned off the whole board and we couldn't figure it out for the love of me. So by the time I got on the air, I was ornery. I threw the liberals and the conservatives on the bus, I think in equal measure. But
So have you heard about this? You'll like this. Did you hear about Bloomberg's Super Bowl ad?
He's paying like a lot of money for
Got a
it.
$10 million Super Bowl
I
ad.
hope it works because the President's right, Sleepy Joe. What little snippets I saw of the debate. I don't get into the debates until we get much further along, but and it's just like the what is it? necrotic party instead of the Democratic Party. They're so old. At any rate, all right.
All
Let's see
right,
where
our
we
guest
are.
is here. I'm going to go wrangle him.
Okay, go wrangle him and bring him in here, and we'll get to him in just a moment. But right now, I've got to do a reset. This is Radio Westchester, and we are live at the train station, and we're waiting for our guest. And let me tell you who this guest is. And I know some people are trying to call in, but we need to get our guest on the air first. He's Andom Democrat for Congress, 16 for the Bronx and Westchester. Ando Georgis, and I cannot pronounce it, but we'll get him to pronounce it for us. And we are running a tad late, I understand that. But let me see, there was a caller there, and I am perfectly willing to get the caller on, but then I don't want the guy to walk in. So you'll forgive me, caller. I may not call you back, but we'll try and catch up with you a little later in the program. A.J. Woodson's joining us at 8:20, Ivar Hayden at 8:50, and we're going to go off for about, we do not have a 9 o'clock guest today. We may take a call or two, but we have a new show starting up at 10 o'clock, and that show is Time to Talk with Jen Graziano, longtime talk show host, magazine publisher, etc. And we're anxious to talk with her at 10 o'clock today. And who are we going to bump into? We're going to bump into A.J. Woodson a little bit. So hopefully your guest will be here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone, and we are the radio station at the train station. Now, obviously, this week, our schedule, we've run some taped stuff as we continue to take care of the business side of this wonderful enterprise. So, a number of shows will be starting up. One starts today at 10 o'clock, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that guest. She's Jen Graziano, and many of you know her. She's had a show on various radio stations in the region called Time to Talk. Now, she, among other things, everybody kind of knows her that she is the manager now of Cox and Graziano Funeral Home and a series of homes, and she is an executive just simply by virtue of that. And she works very hard. She's also an attorney. She's the publisher of Coming of Age magazine, and her gift, and we'll be saying this when she comes on, is she talks about the issues that are hard to discuss in general, preparing for your future, dealing with the end of life, dealing with illness, and so forth. She also discusses issues of health and wellness, and in addition to that, she's just a terrific woman who, God bless her, she's having her daughter learn how to figure skate and ice skate. So that show starts at 10 o'clock today, and she'll be with us each Wednesday at 10 o'clock heretofore as we go into the year 2020. Now, let's see who we know about the man who's coming up. Now, he's from Mount Vernon, and his name is Andom. He actually puts Andom because he's got a last name that's hard to, but he's going to tell us a last name that is very difficult to pronounce. Gebrigorgis. Sounds like a pretty good name, Gebrigorgis.
He's struggling with the.
Go ahead.
The parking here, and I do agree. The parking here is awful.
No, but what I always tell guests is they can park here. They can park in the front because it's easy. The biggest problem isn't even the parking. The biggest problem is realizing that at Division Street, it's so unintuitive.
He was at the parking garage, but it is only permit parking, so that threw
Right,
him.
he's got to go to the top floor.
He didn't know that.
There's a
he's
sign there.
yeah.
So he should be along. In fact, I want to shout out to a good friend and colleague, A.J. Woodson, who will step aside so we can catch up with this congressional candidate. And speaking of congressional candidates, there are now 10 people rather, who are vying for the 37th district of county. Oh, a couple of other things in the news that I wanted to share with you, just some short notes. Pardon me. For those of you who take shots at Biden Jr. or who take shots at the children of Donald Trump, here's a piece in the paper for you, and it pays to be the daughter of a president or ex-president. Chelsea Clinton has received $9 million in salary and stock compensation since 2011 for serving on the board of the internet investment company IAC Interactive. IAC Interactive Corp is controlled by a business mogul, Barry Diller, a longtime friend of the Clintons. 41 mass killings, defined as an event in which 4 or more people die, excluding the perpetrator, occurred in the U.S. during 2019, the most of any year since the 1970s. In all, 211 people died this year, fewer than the 224 tallied by 2017, but that's because one gunman killed 58 people. Make of it what you will. A little more grist for my friends on the right. Please pardon me. This from Peggy Noonan. It's a snippet from what she wrote in the Wall Street Journal, and it has a lot to say. This past decade saw the rise of the woke progressives who dictate what words can be said and ideas held, thus poisoning and paralyzing American drama, entertainment, culture, and journalism. In the coming 10 years, someone will effectively stand up to them. The entire program is accusation. You are racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic. You're a bigot, a villain, a white male, a patriarchal misogynist. Your day is over, they claim to be vulnerable victims, or they claim to be vulnerable victims and moral. Actually, they're not. They mean and seek to kill, and like all bullies are cowards. One more. This is imagine this. Stella McCartney made a big deal about this. Now, she's a very successful designer. She's the daughter of Paul McCartney. And she saw a photo of actor Joaquin Phoenix at the Golden Globes and praised him for having chosen to wear the same tux for an entire award season to reduce waste. Really? This made the news? Well, what makes the news is that she would even make news out of it. And lastly, street cred. Now get this. This is great. This is a good one. Now, Death Row Records, we all know what Death Row Records was, right? The hip-hop label founded by Dr. Dre and now jailed Suge Knight. He used to be on Imus all the time. He used to get a kick out of that guy. At any rate, Dr. Dre went in the straight and narrow and is now a billionaire after he sold beats. And, well, Suge Knight's in jail. But still, Death Row Records, it's got street cred, okay? But now get this. This is great. It's now a wholly owned subsidiary of Hasbro Toys. You gotta love it. You got to just love it. What business? Talk about strange bedfellows. Our businesses are highly complementary with substantial synergies and great cultural fit. Okay, our guest is here. And you know the first thing we're going to ask him to do for us? We're going to ask him to help us pronounce his last name. All righty, it is 8:23. Welcome to the top of the hour, our first guest of this hour. And I can't pronounce his name, and I don't want to try. So he's laughing. You don't need the headphones, but you can put them on if you want. If it helps you, you can put them on, see if you like them. You can adjust the volume right there. All righty, it is 8:23, 40 degrees, getting up to 50 today. It's going to be a beautiful day. I'm Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, and you know we love to interview our political friends. Get up on the mic. Now, his business card says "Andem for Congress," and that's the easy part. It says Democrat for Congress, New York 16 for the Bronx and Westchester. Now, folks, so you know, okay, so you know I'm not kidding. If he were a hockey or football player, his name wouldn't fit in the back of his uniform because it's, see if I pronounce it right, sir, Gebra Gorgeous.
Very, very close. The beginning you got right. It's the Georgis that normally throws off people off.
Okay, so say the whole word.
Gebra Georgis.
Gebra Gorgeous.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, baby. Gebra Gorgeous. They pay me to do this. Well, I pay myself. Greg Gregoribus. Anyway, Andem Greg Gregoribus. We're kind of partial to politicians here and people that run for office. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to our fair studio here. And sorry about all the parking. It's difficult the first time here.
Yeah.
I bet you couldn't find the front of the building either because it's not intuitive.
I was a little confused and I was in a loop. But
yeah, you got to come in the back door here. And and a colleague of mine whom you may know, he may have even interviewed you already, A.J. Woodson.
Yeah.
In fact, we texted each other at exactly the same time. Talk about having similar minds.
Yeah.
I was texting him to say, look, I got to hold off your interview because my guest is running late. And he was texting me, hey, listen, I'll step aside for your guest. So if you know him, he says hello.
Yes, definitely. What's
you
up,
know
AJ?
J.J. Woodson?
Yeah,
he's one of the
from Mount
nicest
Vernon,
people
yeah.
on the planet, you know.
Definitely.
All right, so Together for Tomorrow. That's a great line. And I'm looking at his business card, Andem for New York. Now, this is the first question I ask every elected official or one who pines to run for office. Dog catcher to presidential candidate. You seem like a smart young man. Why do you want to do this to yourself? Why in God's name do you want to run for Congress?
I'm just crazy. You know, I don't know what I'm doing. It's funny. After I graduated from college,
Where'd you go?
Yale.
Oh, excuse me. I went to Yale once. I delivered coffee in the cafeteria. So you went to Yale. What'd you study?
Political science and economics.
I love this guy. All right, political science. You went to Yale. When you graduated from college, what'd you do
2007, next? I knew I wanted to work in public sector nonprofit, so I worked at the Robin Hood Foundation in the city for a year.
Robin Hood Foundation?
Yeah, they're a grant-making organization that fights poverty.
Okay, it makes sense. I was going to say Robin Hood. That's pretty interesting. So pull the mic over to you so that when you turn to me, you stay on the mic. That's cool. Thank you, sir.
And, it wasn't really for me. I was in front of a computer all the time, and I enjoy engaging with people, and that's what sort of gives me my energy. So I ended up getting into education, and it was one of the most challenging things I've ever done. Actually, the most challenging thing I've ever done, especially my first year. But the reason how, after 10 years of being in education, how I ended up running for Congress was that in my school, we had 10-year-olds who walked through metal detectors at 7:30 in the morning. They would walk up 3 flights of stairs into half of a floor of a building that had about 2,000 students. And on the half of the floor that my school was on, you had 500 students crammed into, maybe 15 classrooms. You have 35, 40 kids per classroom. We had one social worker for the 500 students.
No, it says you were a special ed teacher in my notes here. Was this when you were a special ed teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
now, were these all special ed, or these were children from across the spectrum? Okay,
students who were classified with disabilities, and other students who were in general education. But, just seeing basically the stereotypical trappings that a lot of people have about public schools, about some public schools in the city, it was like that times 1,000. Just the disorder that was going on in the hallways. And a lot of this was due to administrative neglect. But at the same time, we were an underfunded school. We had punitive discipline policies. And so for me,
where was this?
This was in the Northeast Bronx,
Northeast Bronx.
217th and
Because again, I
Bronx.
just want to remind people that Andam Gebrgorgis.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's running. Come on, you're pretty good, Jake. Right? Is running for the 16th seat. It's part of the Bronx and parts of Westchester County. And because his last name may confuse some, his card says Andam. All right. So continue. I'm sorry.
Not at all. I mean, because that confuses a lot of people that it is Westchester and the Bronx, where it's.
Oh no,
it's very confusing for
the Southern Westchester and the Bronx. It's almost like one place.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go.
But just to make a long story short, the challenges that were going on in that school and what these young people had to face, it became something for me as a teacher that was irreconcilable. That we didn't even have money for paper in my school. As a teacher, I had to pay for paper. While
I worked at a radio
school.
station like that, and I wanted just to defend it. Not my last one, not WVOX. Everything was great there. I worked for One Hub County, where I had to bring in my own printer, and it was a major company, a major U.S. company.
It's a joke.
It was a joke.
It's a joke. And so this is with, 12 and 13-year-olds who were supposed to be educating. And so for me to reconcile that with the fact that we had a representative who had been in office for 30 years, who has voted for every single war over the last 20 years.
Who is this?
Elliot Engel.
Okay, that's right. I didn't realize that this was Engel's seat. I should have, but yes, okay.
So,
Continue.
he's voted for all these wars, which has diverted our public money to things that the majority of Democrats and even a lot of Republicans do not want. We don't want these endless wars. We want money going back into our communities, investing in our young people, investing in communities, especially communities that have been historically underserved and marginalized. So, I was looking at it at the district. It wasn't like something that I was saying, oh, I'm going to run, this is my plan, special education teacher, to running for office. I never had this plan, but people encouraged me. And they said, Andam, you have the local and grassroots connection, not only being from Mount Vernon, not only teaching in the Bronx, but having been in the district your whole life. Plus, you have the foreign policy knowledge to be able to challenge someone like Engel.
Well, we're going to get to that in a little bit. Mr. I got to do this because people should be referring to you as Mr. Andam's nice running for office, but Greg
I tell people, I just say,
Greg
call me Ghetto Gorgeous. That's what I tell
them. Ghetto Gorgeous. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
No, but Geber Gorgeous.
Yeah. You can't believe how hard it was for me in kindergarten to learn how to spell it.
Your own name.
Because, I had
you should have won a spelling bee for spelling this thing.
Oh, listen, it's there's that Frederick Douglass quote, without struggle, there's no progress.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, by the way. We can go on and on about Frederick Douglass.
She didn't allow... We had spelling tests in kindergarten, like basic words that I guess kindergartners are supposed to know, and she wouldn't let me pass the spelling test until I learned how to spell my last name.
But you can't blame her for that.
It was amazing. But I was at a disadvantage to all the Smiths and Williamses in my
Greg
class.
McGorgas. Greg McGorgas. I'm going to get this right because it's important. People are going to vote for you, and I know why you have Andam there. Now, one of the things that, obviously, I'm looking at your bona fides. You went to Yale. And obviously, international stuff, politics. You've taught. I could tell in 2 minutes you're a brilliant guy. But there are those who are going to say that you're one more AOC type that just wants to knock out an old Democrat. And do you want to be thrown in that bucket, or do you want to be Andam?
Yeah, well, I think I'm 5 years older than AOC. I'm my own person. AOC is her own person.
Right.
She has been on the front lines of a progressive wave, which I think has excited a lot of not only young people, but progressive people throughout the district and even the country.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that we can take from her and these new young folks in Congress and new fresh people in Congress who are doing a lot, trying to push for progressive legislation, even pushing the Overton window in terms of the ideas of possible discourse to be able to have around certain issues. I think all of that's important. But at the end of the day, I'm my own person. There are a lot of things in which AOC and I agree on. I think maybe foreign policy wise, there might be some things where we're not 100% aligned, but overall, I think I'm basically part of that sort of AOC wing of the Democratic Party, pretty left, but a local person who has sort of a connection to the needs and priorities of what's going on in Westchester and the Bronx. But I try to connect that also to an international lens.
Okay, again, my guest is Andum Gebrigorgis.
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 Yeah.
I got it.
You had it immediately the first time.
Well, no, but it's got to get into my
Yeah, you're right,
brain
that
and then
muscle
down to my mouth. But Gebrigorgis.
Gebra.
Like Deborah, Gebrigorgis.
Oh, I've never used that one. That's a good one. Yeah.
Gebrigorgis. Okay, I got this now.
Yeah.
Gebrigorgis. Not sure how we think of a woman as a Gebrigorgis. He's a Democrat for Congress. That's the 16th district out of parts of Westchester and the Bronx, currently held by Elliot Engel, who is the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. So,
House Foreign Affairs.
but he's been there for 30 years.
Since I was 4 years old.
Okay, you have to remind me of his age. We hate Andum now for reminding me how old I am. Now, tell us a little bit about you. You grew up in Mount Vernon. Tell us about that.
I love Mount Vernon. I don't know many people who grew up in Mount Vernon, particularly in the 80s and 90s, who don't have fond memories. Just Mount Vernon you have 65,000 people packed into 4 square miles. So everyone somewhat knows each other, but it's a big enough city that, you're able to sort of walk your own path. I think this is the same throughout the district in Westchester and parts of the Bronx as well, just that idea of community. Mount Vernon people are very proud of their city, Money Earned in Mount Vernon. We all grew up together in our 4 square miles, and it was a great upbringing. I went to a great school, an integrated public school. Lincoln Elementary School was a great school, and I just have fond memories.
It's interesting you say that. I've run a couple of debates with all the mayoral candidates and over the last 10 years. And what's interesting, they argue, but when they argue, it's in first names. It's because they know each other so well.
They go way back.
Richie, you didn't do this. Andre, I don't agree with you. And it's just, and even the man that was there 25 years, even they call by Ernie. So Ernie, I don't believe. But yeah, so it's very much. And by the way, you or whomever gets that job, and Elliot Engel as he sits there, that city needs more attention.
100%.
Than it has gotten. And it is, as a guy that's covered the city, not as close as my friend A.J. Woodson, or not as closely as he, but it's troubled me what's gone on there the last several years. So if you should get the job, hopefully you will help them with that. Now, one of the items that I know you're concerned about that I wanted to talk to you about was income inequality. Now, I don't know if you saw the papers today. Obviously, you're running for office and you're running around. But J.P. Morgan announced earnings greater than any financial services firm has ever announced. Do you know how much money they made in 2018?
I don't even want to guess.
I'll tell you, $35 billion.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a problem with the firm doing well. I worked on Wall Street. I love capitalism. It works. But there are way too many people who are qualified for jobs that can't find any. They have to go to the lower end of the spectrum and work 2 jobs. Something's gone wrong. What do you propose to do about it?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you said at the end of that statement. Really articulates the challenge right now, particularly when we hear about Trump saying all the time, the unemployment levels are this and this, but what are the wages that people are being able to have with those jobs? You find people maybe that they do have a job, but they're being forced to work 2 to 3 jobs just to be able to scrape by. And as you said, income inequality is at the highest it's been in the last 50 years in this country. While at the same time we've been seeing record growth in many industries. So for us, what we're doing in our campaign, one of the things that we're really is a bastion of the campaign. It's something that we're very unequivocally supporting is a federal jobs guarantee. And what a federal jobs guarantee it makes the government an employer of last resort. So anyone who wants a job, needs a job, is able to go to the federal government, and the government will basically provide them with a job in areas of need. So that might be mobilization around the Green New Deal, so developing environmental infrastructure, retrofitting homes that have been underserviced for many years to get them to carbon zero emissions. This is a big issue with like NYCHA, for example, that has a lot of environmental issues. This could be with Medicare for All, ensuring that we have people to provide long-term care for seniors who right now are going to have to only be able to get long-term care if they are on Medicaid. It's only acceptable for people if they're in poverty. So there's a lot of things that we need to do as a country, not only around Green New Deal mobilization, but also around providing the care and service industry for our citizens. And we have so many people in Mount Vernon, in New Rochelle, in Southern Yonkers, Northeast Bronx. The statistic is called the NEAT statistic, not in education, employment, or training. And you have a lot of people in particularly historic communities that are low income, where people are not in education, employment, or training, and they're just sort of waiting for something.
Do you know one of the concerns that people will have? These things are always, of course, good ideas. There is, I'm going to slightly throw an organization under the bus because I haven't seen. I forget their name now, and it's unfortunate. But one of their roles is to find jobs for people and help place them and train them. They don't have a good track record. They're not getting it done. And so there's funding. In fact, I did a little test. I ran a training school for a huge financial services firm.
Okay.
And I ran it well. I was good at it. And I went out of my way to apply for a job to see if it was a who you know or if you qualify. I didn't even get a call back. And I could teach my ass off. I was that good and built the biggest training school on Wall Street. And it seemed more like a club. So how do we, if we go forward with something like this, how do we, A, be sure that government funds aren't wasted as in patronage, A, B, train the people to do these jobs and make sure they're qualified? Because you and I both know if we just give people jobs and they're not qualified and they don't get it done, it will hurt the progressive movement, not help it.
Yeah.
What would you do in this instance?
No, that's a very good point. I think, right now we see that there's potentially bureaucratic inefficiency that goes on with certain organizations. Now, I haven't been in all of those organizations, so from my experience, what I've seen the issue is that there are some issues where it comes to incentives in terms of workers and what they're able to do within the organization. But I think a lot of it can be fixed just with prioritizing and understanding the necessity of what has to happen. So, for example, me as a teacher, I can tell you how many teachers, just because they're not valued in society, when they deal with the stressors of the job, it makes them deal with those challenges in a different way. Now, we can show value in different ways. You can show value maybe in a capitalistic way by raising people's salaries. You can show value.
Of course you can.
In a cultural way by highlighting the necessity of this. But I think when we're able to say, look, the Green New Deal is something that we need to do in order to stave off climate extinction. Medicare for all is something we need to do as a non-discretionary social right because we care.
I was going to ask you about that. You do believe in Medicare for all.
I believe in Medicare for all. I also believe in a homes guarantee. I believe that we shouldn't have anyone homeless on the street. That it's the government's job to be able to provide housing for anyone who needs it. And there's some pretty interesting models, even in Kansas City, for veterans who have become homeless. They build them this small, I don't even know the exact measurements of it, but it's like a very small, like one bedroom mini studio. And it's been done amazing jobs in terms of helping people get off the streets, get the mental health services that they need. But all this is to say, when we see things as non-discretionary social rights, like this is the job of the government to provide these guarantees, it changes the way society views these positions. And so people are then empowered to take their roles and take those jobs with more force. And I think that will actually help with some of the inefficiency. At the same time, though, you're 100% right. As any time you expand organization, you make it more bureaucratic.
You've got to run it well.
It has to be run well.
If I read one more time, and again, I have few expertise in this world. Training was one of them. Probably international affairs now is the other. And every time I read about the federal government putting money towards a training program, I get excited. And I've never heard of one that works. I don't know anyone in one. I don't know anyone that's graduated from one. I don't know anyone who's developed skills from it. My guess as we pass through 841 is Andon Gebrgorgis.
Perfect.
You got it, man.
The Deborah is what made it work. I'm telling you.
It is what made it work. He is running for Congress in the 16th district. Well, actually, obviously, he is running in the primary. It's 16. It's District 16. The seat currently held by Elliot Engel. Now, I want to go back, and it covers the Bronx and parts of the Bronx and parts of Westchester. You mentioned Medicare for all. Now, it sounds good on the face of it, but it's expensive, and many people think, and I'm not sure myself anymore because I've heard so many different descriptions of it.
Yeah, it's
Would
very
that
true.
mean that there would be no more private insurance, or would it coexist with private insurance? Would it be an option?
Yeah, so this is really the classic debate that we're seeing
Yes.
Democrats have. Even yesterday on the debate
Oh,
stage.
sure, yes.
It's even the word progressive, Medicare for all. A lot of these words have been co-opted, and no one has the same definition about what it actually means. So people have, as you've been saying, people have been using Medicare for all and been describing it in very different ways. Some people, like Bernie Sanders, have called for the elimination of private insurance within the Medicare for all system. Elizabeth Warren, I think she's gone back and forth a little bit on it, so I'm not exactly sure of what her latest position is. But in the past, I know she had also said elimination of private insurance. Buttigieg, Kamala Harris had been talking about, even though Kamala Harris isn't anymore, talking about public option,
Yes.
allowing a public option. For me, just looking at the experiences of places like Canada, Taiwan, allowing a public option to exist at the same time while allowing for private insurance to exist while there's a universal plan or public plan, it doesn't allow that universal plan to succeed because it raises the cost so much. What ends up happening is in America, the vast majority of people get their insurance through their employer. It's like 55 to 60% of people. These people tend to be healthier than people who are not employed and are not getting insurance from their employer. So what ends up happening is you now have a two-tiered system where the healthy people are still on those private plans. They're not part of the government public plan. And what this does is it raises health premiums for everyone. It makes it impossible for this universal system to exist. It's just it's almost like simple economics. It's the idea of adverse selection. If you're not having everyone into the same pool where it's universal, it's comprehensive, it's free at the point of return, you split it up into a two-tiered system, it's not going to be able to work. So I think if we look at other systems like Canada and Taiwan, there's a lot of
Although in France, they do both. They have a public option and they have private insurance.
yeah.
It works there.
I think
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah,
I want you to
I
get
think-
your points out.
No,
This is the
totally.
data
I mean,
challenging.
and look, this is a huge conversation within the country and particularly within Democrats. I think the example of Canada and Taiwan, and I think the economic theory behind putting everyone into the same system where risk is disseminated amongst the entire population. Looking at things like the medical loss ratio, where insurance companies are able to sort of tease out the healthy people that they pick, which raises premiums for everyone else. Because in reality, 80% of the population is healthy, and they use 15 to 20%. They're the ones who are responsible for 15 to 20% of medical spending. It's the 20% of people who are frequently sick who use the vast majority of the spending. The only way we're going to be able to deal with this medical loss ratio is if we centralize risk amongst every person, and we make it a universal system.
Gebra Gorgas. I'm getting this now. Gebra Gorgas.
You say it better than me.
Got it now. Andam Gebra Gorgas. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become the master at your last name, more so than you are,
Yeah.
Mr. Gebra Gorgas.
I love it.
Education. You're in it. That's what you do. Are you still doing it now, or did you
No,
leave
it's
it to run
impossible
for
to-
office? Yeah, I
yeah.
thought so. What can we do? I mean, we look down in New York City, the schools are failing. Here we have the hard left pushing schools to change the way they do things. We have so-called charter schools. You told the story, and it's heartbreaking, that you didn't have enough money for these kids. We put so much money in education. How did it not reach these kids? What do you want to do about education?
Yeah, so it's one of these fascinating paradoxes where the U.S. spends more money per capita on education than any country, but we don't see the returns, we don't see the results, and we don't see it reaching our students. In many metrics, where towards the of OECD countries or industrialized nations, we're towards the bottom in many metrics, particularly around math and science. Couple numbers that are I think important to think about nationwide, which also affect us here locally. Majority minority school districts receive $23 billion less in funding than predominantly white districts. Property taxes play a role in this, and we have to ensure throughout the entire country, but also here in New York, that there's fiscal equity, and irrespective of where someone is born, schools are getting the funding that they need. But to your point, as you exactly said, we still have situations in some schools where they're getting money, but how is it being allocated? Administrators have salaries of $125,000. Why do we not have paper? And so I think that is more on a district level. It has to really be looked at how money is being used. There was recently another huge issue I see is integration. And recently there was a huge push in the city in District 15 in Brooklyn. They invested a lot of money in doing a study on how we can integrate schools, which is very important. It's beneficial to everyone in our country. And they put a lot of money into it, and they had some. Ended up determining some normative proposals. And the issue was, it's not always about the funding. It's sometimes about just what are the actual policies and practices that we're implementing that are going to allow students to come together. So it's we can put $30 billion to so-called integrating schools, but if we still have admission screenings in order to get into a school, well, that's going to reproduce inequality where people are going to be able to pay for a test, and some people who are maybe wealthier will get in, and people who are not aware of the test or they don't have the money to get a test prep tutor, they're not going to be able to get into it. So there are just some common sense policies that we can do to make schooling and access to higher education more equitable across the board.
2 more questions because there are about 3 minutes, and we'll meet again. This is the first of many, and we can get into the weeds in some of these issues, particularly education.
Yeah. We can talk about Carlos Beltran too. I see.
You have no. My papers are still all over the desk here. It was that kind of day. We'll do that at the end. I've been asking everybody about Carlos Beltran. This is actually an easy question because it has nothing to do with politics, really. What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? Are you married? Do you have kids? What's your background? What can we say about you?
I always thought I would be married with kids by now, but no, I am not. I am married to the campaign, you can say.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
And what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Yeah, so I love sports. I love watching sports. I play basketball and flag football weekly. Actually, for every Friday night I play
football. You're a receiver, aren't you?
I play every position.
Okay, but no, you look you just your body type.
Oh,
you look
very agile.
Yeah, you look like you
I actually played football in high school, and
you did.
It was a type
what
of thing.
Position?
Wide receiver.
Oh, gee, I figured that out.
If I ever got hit, it was bad news. Me at 135 pounds.
Oh, I understand that. I was going to say, yeah.
But I rarely was hit.
Yeah.
I rarely was hit.
That was when I was young. I still play hockey. When I was young, it was hard to hit me. Now I'm like a rolling target,
Wow.
I'm like
so it's funny. I used to play hockey in Mount Vernon, and it was just hilarious. Our team was basically all first-generation Americans. Our parents had no idea what the hell was going on. Like my family, they came from Eritrea and near Ethiopia and East Africa. Other people on the team, their parents are from Jamaica and Brazil. No one's parents had any idea what was going on about the sport, but all of us kids, we loved it. Growing up here in New York as particularly big Rangers fans, we
are a big Ranger fan. I knew I liked you when you
so,
walked in here.
94, Messier,
all
Larmer,
right,
Graves,
I knew.
Leach.
A fellow Democrat just walked in. We'll introduce you in a moment. Now, here's our final question always, but I got to sneak in another one.
Yeah.
You want to? I hope you want to comment on the Beltran thing because Major League Baseball has been very inconsistent. Should he get suspended or punished in some way as well?
So I was just listening to it on. Since I've been running, I'm always a little bit late on the news cycle because I'm just running around.
No,
so I was listening to it this morning about the Astros and Cora. So I actually don't know what happened with Beltran.
Okay, he was the ringleader of the players. He was
in Houston.
Yeah, and the only player to be so named in the investigation. And the commissioner has said we're not going to suspend him or punish him because we can't know all the players who were or were not involved. So we want to treat all the players the same. No one's going to get hit. But what my reaction to that was, well, then why didn't you do that with PEDs? Because we know, in fact, in that case, there were known 100 or 140 players that they knew did PEDs, but because of their agreement with the players' union, they didn't out them. So, which I say, put Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and everybody in the hall and forget about it. But that's why he wasn't indicted, or wasn't punished. But now you've got Cora out, the GM of the Houston out, the manager of Houston out.
Yep.
All three have been suspended and fired.
Yeah.
What about Beltran, who acts like he's for motherhood and against sin?
Yeah. I have no idea what they're going to do with that situation. I just know that it's looking pretty good for the Yankees, so I'm feeling.
Another Yankee fan.
I'm from Mount Vernon.
That's just just wrong.
This is Westchester. Why a Mets fan?
No, well, you got some Met fans here.
You got some.
Go right across the bridge. Oh yeah, because you're too close to the stadium. I was going to say you can go right across the Whitestone Bridge.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
All right, a question that I need to ask you now, and the man to your left was asked this several years ago, when he, for the first time, became a councilman here in New Rochelle. In fact, let me introduce the two, since you guys wear the uniform of the same Democratic team. And I'm the only man who can pronounce this guy's name. Andem Gebrgorgis is running for Congress against Elliot Engel in the 16th district. He's challenging him in a primary. And Ivar Hayden, your mic's on. Ivar Hayden is District 4 here in New Rochelle, a city councilman.
Nice
So
to meet you.
you guys should meet. Now, he's heard this many times when he's run, so you get to answer it now. I'm in the booth in the Democratic primary. There's you, Elliot, and whoever else throws their name in the ring. Why do I want to pull the lever for you?
Yeah.
And we already lost the Met fan vote, so do your best.
Mets fans, I do not want your vote. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You know, there are a lot of good things that Elliot Engel has done in his 30 years, but at the same time, 30 years is a very long time where we've seen our country go down in a lot of metrics. This election is in many ways a referendum on congressional term limits, money in politics, and particularly with Elliot Engel, U.S. militarism abroad, where my generation has really seen the effects of this, where we remember pre-9/11, post-9/11, and now you have people who are serving in Afghanistan who were not even born on 9/11. It's time for a change.
That scares me.
Yeah, I mean, it's time for a change, especially around how we view American primacy in a world where we really have to come together to deal with the shared global challenges we have, whether it be climate change, refugees, denuclearization, cyber terrorism. And I think we need a new framework of thinking about that. And so, you know, thank you for your service, Elliot Engel, but I think it's time for the next generation to be able to put forth those solutions.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in. Two things were accomplished today, folks. You got to know about a candidate for the 16th Congressional District. He's going to be in the primary against Elliot Engel, 30-year congressman, as you've heard. And I can pronounce his name well. Now, his business cards say Andem. Do you like Andem or Andem? How do you?
It's Andem. Actually.
Andem, okay. Andem, okay. And the reason he does it is most people can't pronounce his last name as well as I do, and it's Gebrgorgis.
Yeah, we're also trying to save money on the characters.
Yeah, well, again, and the reason he's not playing by the way, that's the reason he likes the Yankees, because they don't put their name in the back of the uniform.
As a kid, I always wanted to be Dr. G.
No, you'd have to be, or they could change your name to Joe.
Yeah, or I could have a nickname like the Brazilian soccer players, you know, something like that.
Let me see if I can get this. And Andem. Something, just put Andem on the back.
I would love it.
It would work.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having
we
me.
will get you back, because a lot of these issues, we really need to drill down with them a little bit, because you are proposing alternatives that are different. They're new. And in many cases, they're revolutionary. And that's Andem for Congress. You'll be seeing and hearing a lot from him in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you very much for
Appreciate
coming
you.
in. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to go literally in 1 minute to our next guest. All right, we're going to run a little after 9 o'clock with this guest, because we got to him a little late. It's the kind of thing we've been doing, and we will reschedule A.J. Woodson, who was kind enough to step aside because our guest was running late. The following is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, Dominic's Fine Cigars, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. And it's always nice when this man stops by, and he stops by in person. One of my favorite people in Westchester. I guess I have to admit that. And when I say admit that, it's full disclosure, because you're supposed to be indifferent to elected officials. But I like this one, and he's also a friend, which makes it a little easier. Please welcome your city councilman from District 4, Ivar Hayden. Good morning, Ivar.
Hey,
how are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Thank you very much, Bob.
Got all these young people running for Congress.
I think it's exciting.
They're babies.
I think it's exciting, though, seriously.
You know, it was great. I asked him, so where'd you go to school? Yeah, I said, I think I served coffee there once.
Yeah, right.
God.
It's, hey, what can I say?
It's been interesting.
It's appropriate to have, younger people getting involved in this political business, which, it's kind of what it's become.
It's tough. Now, you've been in office now about 8 years?
I've been 8 years. Yeah, I'm just starting my ninth.
You're
ninth
starting
term.
your third term.
Yeah, third term.
What have you learned? Think back to before you were a councilman. What have you learned about public office? A good friend of mine who's a regular on the show for all kinds of reasons has the same job you do, but with the city out in New Jersey. And he openly says he did not know how complicated the issues were or how difficult they were at times.
I think that's absolutely true. If you're diligent about the job, if you really care about it, it's very hard to navigate a lot of these issues. And I think a perfect example is the school superintendent issue here in New Rochelle right now. There are people who have strong opinions about issues, and they're certainly entitled to those opinions. And I'm not going to get deep into the woods as to talking about what's right and what's wrong and all these other kinds of things. But those are serious issues, and it's very hard to navigate those and to be honest with people and be straightforward, especially in the climate that we have today, the political climate, and that.
Which is you either for me or against me.
Yeah,
point of
it's
view.
become so polarized that if, for example, if you support 95% of a particular group's agenda but don't support the other 5%, then you're no good.
Trust me, I get that here.
It's
like today, I threw liberals and conservatives under the bus with equal venom today.
Absolutely, and I think you should. It's like, it is very hard to do this job right now. And I think it's also a wonderful thing to be able to do, because to be able to talk with a wide variety of people, to try to listen and understand, and then sit down with your fellow council people and try to do what traditionally has been done in the political world, which has come to compromises that are equally good or equally bad for both sides, which is how a business deal is done. Those are,
Do you find
those
yourself?
are things we need to do.
I know even here now, radio is there are two elements to any show, and this one, openly, particularly in this new format, is a mixture of opinion and just hard factual news.
Right.
And I always try to be clear when it's opinion. It's probably a good thing, but yet personally, it's troubling. You doubt yourself a lot. Like I'll announce an opinion and I'll get off the air and I said, I felt that way, but do I believe it? Feeling is not believing, which is a great contradiction. Is it that way for public office as well?
I think it is if you really care about it. I mean, I think that
it's a curse. I know.
Well,
I find myself. I get
there are a large number of
Yeah.
politicians who really are simply politicians, and they just find the words. I'm not particularly good at it. To find the words to dance around every issue that is brought to them without ever taking a stand on anything, and that is, that's part of the game for a lot of people. I certainly don't respect politicians like that very much. I do think it's very difficult to maintain your moral compass as you go through this process, especially the higher office that you attain.
Or even wonder what your moral compass is anymore.
Yeah. And, the young gentleman that was just here, he mentioned term limits. It's something that I've always felt is appropriate. And, but as you get deeper and deeper into this and you get higher and higher in the, with public office, it becomes more and more difficult to have people who have no experience or have no knowledge or don't know the other players involved in the political process. It's very hard. If you had new people in the Congress every 2 years, you can only imagine what it would be like.
Yeah,
and I, on the other hand, people have
I'm beginning to move toward
been there
that
their entire adult lives. I don't think that's appropriate either. So, I think it's hard.
Well, I know one of the issues that you're dealing with now as a city councilman is, and I'm not sure why this happened, and I know everybody agrees it's time to take a breath, but the development has been so rapid and so effective, if you will, that there are now people saying, whoa, slow down, let's take a look, are we doing the right thing? What drove that? Because there really haven't been any surprises. In fact, it worked.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm of that opinion.
No, I know that, but
right
what,
now,
and that's why I need
I think
give us some insight
what
into
drove
why.
it is that we accomplished in 4 years what we had set out to do in 10. We're all of us are kind of shocked by the response we got from the development community.
Yeah, really.
And now we have people lined up ready to continue the process, ready to build more buildings. And I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the fact that we really don't have plans in place for some things that I think are critically important. We have ideas. We've certainly discussed all of these issues over the last few years, but there are no specific plans in place for certain things. And I think it's appropriate at this point to think about that, think about what we've done in terms of affordable housing, what we've done in terms of historic preservation, what we've done in terms of connectivity between various projects, green space, playgrounds. I can go on. I mean, municipal parking, which we still have a dearth of, and will continue to have a dearth of.
For
I think
a while,
we need to consider all of these issues, and I'm encouraged. We have a new council. We had the first meeting last night of the new
How'd
council.
that go?
It was remarkably short, which is really kind of interesting. But I think that the city manager decided not to overload the agenda for the first meeting.
And a lot of rookies.
And I think that was a sensible thing to do. On the other hand, we went through the whole thing, I think, in like 30 minutes or whatever. So, we did have a lengthy executive session with some issues that needed to be talked about. But it was the shortest committee of the whole meeting that I've ever attended in the 8 years, which is really kind of interesting. And then we moved on to citizens to be heard after that. But I think it's great. I think, having new people on council, new ideas, new faces, new...
It's always a good thing.
Yeah,
We're seeing
it's
it
a
in the
positive
country
thing.
and locally.
Yeah.
How is with the... by the way, speaking of the speed, Burling Lane, which you know well, I make the left when I come out of here every day and go down Burling Lane. And I swear to you, 2 buildings that weren't there 5 months ago were there now. I don't know how they do it so quick. I know some of it was prefab, but even prefab, the interiors are all all and everything already.
Actually, it's astonishing. I mean, they are modular, all those buildings, even though they all look very different. They're all modular structures. The one on the right now, as you make that turn, the Artist Studio building, is one of my favorite buildings.
Yeah, and they've
believe
already...
it or not, that building has been finished for 2 months, waiting for Con Edison to come and hook up the power.
And they've got, they've already bought equipment. There's a gym downstairs when I pass by.
There's an artist workspace in the basement, shared workspace. There's a performance space on the roof.
And then there's a miserable councilman that lives down the street from them.
A miserable councilman lives down the street. The building across the way...
By the way, folks, excuse me, it's 9:04. That miserable councilman is Ivar Heiden
Absolutely.
from District 4 here
Absolutely.
in New Rochelle.
Yeah. No, it's really... I mean, the Hamill brothers have done an amazing job on that triangle. I mean, that's their concept. They're local. This family development company. This isn't one of these mega companies. And they put their hearts and souls and money into this. And they've done a beautiful, beautiful job in that triangle. They really have.
Well, that's cool to hear. Now, business. I talk with Al Tarantino about this all the time, who also has a business in the downtown. You do. The development has really curtailed a lot of walking. We didn't have a lot of walking people on the streets to begin with. It's probably really hurt business, no?
I don't know. It must have. I mean, all I can say is that my business isn't all that different, but I'm a destination business.
Right.
So
people they know that they need to go there to get something.
And I
framed.
think Al Tarantino's also is pretty much a destination business at this point. And but for a lot of other businesses, yes. I mean, digging up the streets constantly, traffic issues, parking issues, definitely that concerns small business in the downtown. I also think that as these development sites are getting ready, certain small businesses don't have a place to go. Some of them have closed recently. Starlight closed recently. There'll be other.
Yeah, I saw that.
There'll be other stores in that little triangle there that will be closing.
Although I thought that was, while I liked going in there occasionally, I thought it was a weak business to begin with because they didn't stay open many hours. They really were just a
there for
business.
a lot of years, and I think they filled a need.
They didn't refurbish.
Breakfast need in the downtown, but and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens now. Going forward, I'm very concerned about existing business. I know you are. I hope that people will be able to make it through the next 3 or 4 years. I think we're going to have a lot of problems with the sewer infrastructure that is underway right now. Every main street in the downtown is going to be dug up ultimately. We still are going to deal with the bridge over here, which is going to be quite a
The bridge
quite
right
a
out
disruption. North
yeah.
Avenue, the bridge over the thruway on North Avenue, which I understand is getting closer to happening, although the Thruway Authority says that every year, so I don't know.
Well, you never know. I know that I'm
But,
always moaning because I tend to I take the Hutch a lot.
Yeah.
Over what they've done over in Pelham drives me out of my mind. You know?
Oh, well, it's,
It must be sewer work because they've been slowly encroaching down Lincoln
I
Avenue.
think a lot of that is sewer work also.
And it's just been insane.
And unfortunately, everything is at once. And, we have 100-year-old infrastructure in New Rochelle, and it's going to have to be upgraded regardless of the development process. But certainly, in addition, we need to develop for that process.
What's your number one goal in the new year? Is it dealing with this, let's stop and take a look and see what we need? Not necessarily stop developing, but look and see where we're headed.
Yeah, I think my overall goal is to try to get a handle on where we're at right now and decide where we want to go. What do we want to be ultimately when we grow up? And what are the things that we're missing so far in this process? How do we fix those things? And I think, that's critical for the next 3 or 4 years. And that the most important thing that I think that I certainly have to get involved in. There's lots of other stuff that we need to think about going forward, but that's the critical part. And I think it's the most important part for the future of the city. I mean, we've already seen, as a result of this development, that we didn't have to raise property taxes for the first time in 25 years. In this last budget cycle, we did have a new sewer fee.
Although there was a new fee, and every
Right.
time one of you all says that, I get the email. Right
No,
away.
I listen,
Isn't-
and I understand that. The only thing I can say about it is that the fee is more equitable than a property tax on property tax
in the way
individuals
it's
because
in the
it's
way it's distributed,
it's spread out amongst commercial and among not-for-profits and all these other things, which property tax bills are not. So there's a benefit to that, but and it's something that we have to do, and I'm hoping that we'll get rid of it at some point. I mean, this is once the infrastructure is completed, we'll see. There's a lot more money that will be coming into the city coffers as a result of the development that we already have, and we'll see how much more.
Anything you want to shout out about before you go?
It's a little early, actually, to talk about specific things. I think I'm, as you brought up, I'm very concerned about existing local business in the downtown and trying to figure out ways for those businesses to stay alive during this process. And so that's what I'm going to continue working on. And shout out to Radio Westchester. And where's the video? What happened here?
It's right there.
I thought we were getting the guest
No,
guest video.
Yeah, we do you want to see the camera?
It's
Oh. We're going to be using it in the next show. We're going to change
Oh,
it.
terrific.
Yeah, we just have to.
That's great.
We had
Okay.
some issues installing it, but you'll
Got
be
it.
on TV soon.
Hey,
Your moment
I
as a
want my
star
15
is
minutes
coming.
of fame. Yeah. Right.
In fact, at 10 o'clock today, and we asked people to stay tuned at 10 o'clock today, we will be premiering Time to Talk with Jen Graziano,
Oh,
who
very
has
nice.
joined our lineup, be with us on Wednesdays after Good Morning West. Well, that was a Freudian slip. After Mornings with Bob Marrone.
Gotcha. No, that's great. Good. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much for
Yeah.
Being with us. It's
My
always
pleasure.
a pleasure. Take care. Eva
Thank
Hyden,
you.
everybody.
Thank you,
District
Bob.
4, New Rochelle. Okay, what we're going to do is to take a break for a while. We've got some business to tend to, and we will be back with you at 10 o'clock. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone, and I'll see you at 10. And this bit of a top of the hour was brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top rated campus of senior care. Visit UHGC.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena & Con, plug-in virtual reality, and Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Patrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. We will see you at 10 o'clock, and you can welcome in Jennifer Graziano. Take care, everybody.